I'm like, how can I get out of this situation alive? That's a effing hand. That ain't no paw, that's a hand. Just tell me what drug you gave my father that cost me a father when I was a kid. I'm leaving. I don't even know where the hell I'm running, but I'm running. I'm going to take you from your kids like you took my dad from me. This is a monster. So that thing did, in fact, kill him. She just took a long time doing it. Okay. But this calm voice in my head said, okay, I'm looking at a werewolf. My name is Roy Stubblefield. There may be some viewers that know who I am by hearing my encounter or seeing me on TV. These woods are haunted. I'm going to say this real quick. If you really want to hear what happened to me where they didn't change the words that I said, listen to this episode, or you can listen to me on Dogman Encounters where I first shared my encounter, because I've talked to a few people that have been on that show, and they said that they changed parts of their encounters. We don't need anything changed about what happened to us. When you omit some information, it could possibly cost somebody their life. If they do react in the wrong way, if they encounter one of these things, it could cost somebody their life. So I thank everybody for their kind words that I've read in the comment section, and all the people that have reached out to me on Messenger, because evidently my episode is everybody hears it and says that's their favorite one. And okay, I don't know how to say positively that thank you, because my terror brought you such great entertainment. But if you like it, that's good. If it saves a life, excellent. Not trying to be famous, definitely not trying to do that. I just had something happen to me years ago that it opened up and closed some portals in my mind, if you will, as opposed going when you go along the thoughts of monsters don't exist. They're just in books and Hollywood movies. But I'm telling you, you're never going to see a werewolf, Dogman, Bigfoot in your life, because they're not real. Let me say this emphatically. Wrong, wrong, wrong. These things exist. And should you be unfortunate enough to see one, your life is going to change. When I had my encounter, or after I had my encounter, and I got all these years to think about stuff, I think within the first 7 days, I got kind of pissed off. Now, the reason I was pissed off is because ever since I was little, my parents would tell me, there's no monster in the closet. There's nothing up under your bed. No, there's nothing waiting around the side of the house when you go to take the trash out. And yet, I'm standing a few feet away from a monster. So I'm like, why would my parents lie to me? Why would they not prepare me for what the frick is out there in the world? And I had to come to grips with it because they didn't know. It wasn't done maliciously. It was just to tell you this to keep you from being afraid of the dark. And my father was right. The dark can't hurt you. The dark can't hurt you. What lurks in the dark is what can tear your rooter from your tutor. That's what can hurt you, whether you trip on a stone or fall in a hole because you can't see in the dark. The dark ain't going to hurt you. It's what lurks in the dark that can get you. So having said that, my encounter happened in Metairie, Louisiana. Well, it started in New Orleans, I guess. I was living with my cousins and my aunt. And my aunt was of the age at that time where she didn't like to be called auntie or aunt. She just wanted to be called by her first name. Okay, I could do that. I lived with them for a couple of years, graduated from high school, and She came home one day and said, we're going to have a family meeting. Normally when this happens, that means somebody didn't do something where they didn't wash the dishes, cut the grass, shovel snow, whatever 3 teenage boys were supposed to do, clean the basement, whatever. So I'm looking at my cousins like, what didn't y'all do? And they looking at me like, no, what didn't you do? And I'm like, well, I guess we're going to find out in a minute. So she went in her room and changed clothes and she came out. And we always have these meetings at the dining room table. So we sit down and she sit down and she didn't give us a bunch of fluffery things. She said, in a couple of weeks, I'm going to be leaving, moving to New Orleans. And I'm going to leave the house to y'all. Y'all just got to pay the rent and pay utilities. I'm sitting here looking at her, and one of my cousins started kicking me up under the table. Now, we have such a connection that we know what certain movements or facial expressions mean. And I kind of looked over at him, and he got that look on his face like, oh, yeah. And I'm sitting there, I'm listening to her, and she said, and don't tear up the house. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to get the security deposit back. Okay, we got this. She gets up, and me and my cousin looking at each other like, it's about to be on and cracking. She going to leave us the house. 3 teenage boys with no parental guidance. Oh, this about to be the spot this summer. It's about to be on. She went in the kitchen, and she called me in the kitchen. And I'm like, damn, she forgot something. Okay, all right. So I go in there. She said, well, I'm going to need you to help me drive down to New Orleans. And I'll put you on the Continental Trailways on Friday and send you back to Nebraska. I'm like, okay, all right, I can do that. Also at this time, I was going through my first serious breakup of a relationship I had. And it caused me a few issues because it was the first one I had been through. I actually thought I was going to be with this girl for a while. And when I found out the reason that she wanted to break up, I'm like, okay, well, you know what? Life goes on. But it would do me good to get out of town for a while. I could focus my mind on something else and see, a new city. And so I told her, yeah, I can do that. So Sunday morning, we got up and started loading the U-Haul and got that all loaded up. And we left out, I believe it was Monday evening or Tuesday morning. No, it was Tuesday. No, it was Monday. I'm sorry, it was Monday. So after a 35-hour trip, we pull up into New Orleans. We wore out. And she was like, let's just take the beds out. We're going here and go to sleep and just start unloading the truck in the morning. And we did. And I have to give that woman credit to be 5'1". The stuff that we had to haul to the second level is just me and her. She was strong because she had Duncan Fife stuff, and that stuff is extremely heavy. I mean, and I'm asking her, you okay? She's like, I got this, just come on. I'm like, all right, well, I don't ever want to fight you. I wasn't scared of her, but I'm like, you have to come up with a different plan because, she's strong. But we got all that done, and we sat down and we was talking, and he said, well, I'm going to take you around and show you a few tourist attractions. I'm like, okay. So that night we went to Popeye's Fried Chicken, and I never had Popeye's before. They didn't have that in Nebraska. We drove around and looked at a couple of places, and then we went back home. And she took me to City Park, which is a huge park. It's got a Lake Pontchartrain on one side of it. I'm like, oh, it looked like a good fishing spot. And she took me somewhere else. I can't remember. I don't have my journal in front of me, but she took me to another spot, and I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool. Well, Thursday night before I'm supposed to leave, she takes me down in the French Quarters. Now, I had never heard of the French Quarters. I didn't know anything about Mardi Gras or nothing like that. So we walking around, and I see people walking up and down the street drinking alcohol. There's police there, too. They're not stopping nobody. They're not giving nobody a problem. They just walking along, I guess, looking for somebody that's being out of control. And my mind is kind of like, wait a minute. You can't walk down the street in Omaha drinking alcohol. That's the fast foul note to get locked up. You're going to the drunk tank for tonight, or you're going to get a ticket. And I see these people, and you got these street vendors on the corners. They selling these drinks. They come in a 32-ounce cup. You can get a hurricane, a tropical storm, or a typhoon. And I got one, and let's just say by the time I got to the bottom of the cup, I'm glad I wasn't dry. I put it like that. They were strong. So I'm like, and you got all of these nightclubs down there playing whatever genre of music you choose, blues, jazz, rock and roll, R&B. I'm like, wow, I don't want to go back to Omaha. I can come and do this every night. I don't want to go back to Omaha. So I turned and looked at her and I said, well, can I stay? I don't want to go back to Omaha. She, stopped and looked at me like, wait a minute, you supposed to leave tomorrow. I'm like, I want to stay. She said, so just seeing the French Quarters make it? Yes, I want to stay. He's like, well, you supposed to be going to school this fall. They got colleges here. Can I go to school down here? She said, well, yeah. He's like, well, you don't have to get a job. I'm like, I can do that. Can I stay? Just give me a place to stay for a few months till I get me a job, and I'll move out and get my own spot. They're like, all right, if that's what you want to do. I'm like, yes. So it took me approximately 8 days to get a job. She helped me fill out my paperwork for my grants and stuff to get into college. And I got the job, and it's at a place called Chess King. Now, I don't believe they're no longer in existence, but for those of you that remember Chess King, there's a clothing store. If you wanted to look like your favorite rock and roll artist, R&B, whatever, you go to Chess King. You want to look like Michael Jackson, you go to Chess King. You want to dress like, not look like, but dress like. You want to dress like the lead singer from Flock of Seagulls, Duran Duran, you come to Chess King. We had it all. And this particular store, it was mainly for men, but we had a small women's section. And I've said this before, having women come to the store, yeah, that's a great thing. Wink, wink. You get to see all different types of females. But I'm going to add just a little something. I'm not changing anything, but I'm adding this. A lot of guys that work in selling clothes, they don't work in there just because they want to try on women's shoes or nothing like that. You want to see these females. I don't care if you're married, divorced, if you're Al Bundy and sell shoes. You're working in that store because you want to see women. Now, I'm single. I've been broke up for a little bit more than a month. I'm ready to pick up where I left off. So our store had a bell above the door. And they still have these into some stores today, not a big department store, but some of these little mom and pop shops or antique shops where you got that little bell. So when you come in the store, it'll ring, let you know you got a customer. Unfortunately, it rings when they leave too. So it goes both ways. Well, I was actually changing out or rotating some stock. I'm about to put a new shipment out. And I heard the bell go off. Now, I worked with my manager. I don't know if that was by design or if that's the only shift she had available, but it wasn't a problem because she was pretty chill and she was helping 2 other customers. I hear the bell go off and I turned and looked at the door and in walks this female. And I stood there and I looked at her for a hot second and I said, welcome to Chess King. Can I help you? She's like, well, just let me look around if I need you. I'll either come and get you or I'll let you know. I'm like, okay. Now, I'm looking at her. And Josh, when I say she had everything that Uncle John needed, she had everything. I mean, from the head to her toe, she was put together real good. She was very pretty. Skin tone, she was gorgeous. She really was. And I'm at work, so I got to stay professional. So I just went back to putting up clothes, but I noticed that I kept looking over there at her. I'm like, come on, tell me you want some help. Come on, tell me, like that to myself, but I still got to do my job. So Um, I happened to be looking over at her. She kind of did that little come here motion. I'm like, okay, here we go. So I walked up. I'm like, how can I help you? She's like, do you have these shirts in any other colors? And it was actually some ones that I had just got them putting out, but we had 5 different colors, but I hadn't put all the colors out. I just put out 2. And I said, yeah, let me go in the back. And I looked at her and I'm like, you a medium, right? And she said, yeah. I'm like, okay. So I went in the back and I got the other 3 shirts and brought them out. And I think it was a purple, orange, and a red one. And she picked the orange and the purple one. She's like, I want these 2. I'm like, okay. What else, Joe? Is there anything else I can help you with? And she said, no, I'm going to go over here and look at the skirts and the slacks. Okay. All right. So I'm standing there looking at her walk away, and I went back to work, and I started thinking, what can I say to her? What's one of my best pickup lines? What can I say that is going to pique her interest? And after running some stuff through my head, I just got to the point where I'm like, you know what? Just go over there and talk to her. Don't worry about no pickup line. Just introduce yourself and say what's on your mind. Now, I got to be careful still because my boss is female. And even though it wasn't a really big thing back in the 80s, sexual harassment was still a real thing. So I got to be real careful on what I say. And I just, walked over to her and I was talking to her and I said, hey, I'm new in town and basically it'd be great if you could show me around, but I'd like to take you out on a date. And she stopped what she was doing and she looked at me. And she looked me up and down and she kind of stood there to where it got to either she about to lay into you or she just gonna be like, nah, I ain't interested. Now, I had been looking at her hands. I didn't see a ring. I didn't even see a tan line. If she had a ring, she would have took it off. So, but that doesn't necessarily mean she wasn't married. Maybe she got married, didn't have a ring, or maybe she didn't have a husband. Maybe she just had a boyfriend or possibly a girlfriend. I didn't know. I'm just like, just shoot your shot and see what happens. So she said, yeah, I'll go out on a date with you. And I'm like, yes. The door's open. The door's open. Now let's just see if we can seal the deal. So we walked up to the counter together and I went around the other side and I rung up her selections and I, grabbed a piece of paper stuff and I'm like, so let me get that telephone number. Now, the whole time I've been talking to her prior to this, she looked me dead in my eyes and never broke eye contact. And I noticed during one of our exchanges that I was looking in her eyes and her eyes were this like a hazel green color, but I never seen eyes, but it's like she had gold flecks in her pupil. And I was like, her iris, I'm sorry. And I'm looking like, damn, she got some pretty eyes. I never seen no eyes like that before. That's, that's different. But there was something about her. I mean, you ever been somewhere and whether you shopping or driving down the street and you see somebody and you just get that feeling like there's something about this person. Sometimes it might be a negative vibe, or sometimes it might just be I can't put my finger on it, but there's something about her. Well, she had this aura about her that it called to me, for lack of a better expression. It just called to me that I'm like, I want to take her out on a date. Now, of course, she could have said no, and that would have been the end of that. And sometimes I wish she had said no. Please believe me on that. Sometimes I wish she had said no if I had known what was going to happen. But I asked her for a phone number, and she broke eye contact, and she looked to the right and kind of looked down. And she said, well, I can't give you my phone number when she looked back at me. Okay, it's not unheard of that people don't have phones back in the day. We didn't have cell phones or nothing. Sometimes a lot of people didn't have a house phone. They make their phone call from phone booth. I said, okay, well, let me get your address. She broke eye contact again and looked to her left. And she looked down. She's like, well, I can't give you my address either. And I stood there and looked at her, and I guess I had an expression on my face to where, okay, well, you got a boyfriend or a husband or a girlfriend. Why you agree to go out with me? I didn't say this, but the funny thing is she looked at me and said, no, I'm not married. No, I don't have no boyfriend. She didn't mention about having a girlfriend or not, but she said, I'm like, well, why you can't give me no information? She said, well, my mother won't let men or boys come by the house. Now, she said, men or boys come by the house to court me. Now, I know what that means based, from what my grandmother and my grandfather told me, but that wasn't a term that young people use too much. But I listen when people talk to me. I do. And when she said that, I'm like, oh, okay. I said, well, if I can't call you or come by the house, how are we supposed to go out on a date? She said, there's a park a couple of blocks from my house. Just meet me there at 7:00. I'm like, okay. All right. So I had given her my telephone number and my address. And, let me know if you ain't going to make it or something like that. And I gave her a card for the store. And like, you can reach me here too. She put it in a bag and said, okay. I walked her to the door and I opened the door for her. And at that time of day, from the angle of the sun, it was coming into the windows in the front of the store. And when I opened the door, she turned to tell me bye. For a split second, the light now had hit her eyes to where it's like she had a gold circle around her pupils. And I was like, that just blew my mind because I'm like, damn, I ain't never seen eyes like that before. That stuck with me because like I said, since that day, I've never seen eyes like that. And it was different. And I was like, man, you got some fantastic eyes. Your eyes are gorgeous. She blushed a little bit. She's like, thank you. You said that earlier. I'm like, yeah, but I never seen eyes like that before. Never. So I told her it was a Wednesday when she came in and we decided we was going to meet Friday. And yes, being the man that I am, when she left the store and she was walking down the sidewalk, I did, take a couple of steps out and turn my head and watch her walk away. And I was hypnotized by the sway. I'm not going to lie, but I'm just being a man. So I go back in the store and my boss has finished helping the customer she was with. And she was standing at the end of the counter. She looked at me, she said, you real smooth, you know that? And I kind of looked at her like, what do you mean? She's like, I listened to what you were saying. You real smooth. I'm like, but I didn't do anything special. I was just talking to her. And she said, that's what makes you smooth because rather than you coming with a pickup line, you just decided to be yourself. I'm like, okay. I said, well, to myself, I'm like, if you ever heard some of the pickup lines I got, I had them better on the street or the bar. Maybe you wouldn't be saying that, but thank you. She's like, okay, so you got a date Friday, huh? Yes, ma'am. She's like, okay, well, you're supposed to close Friday. And I'm like, well, if we close at 9:00, and I'm like, why didn't you tell me that, when I was making the date? She's like, oh, I'm going to let you go on your date. In town, I'm going to cover you. She said, but you owe me one. I said, well, as long as I owe you, you'll never be broke. And we talked a little bit and I stood there and we was talking back and forth. And then it hit me. Dumbass. You didn't ask her where the park was at.
Oh,
what?
No.
So I'm like, oh, man. So she had said the name of the park and she said it was in Metairie. And my boss said, don't worry about it. I know where the park is. I'm like, you do? She said, yeah. I'm like, all right. So she actually drew me a map with turn-by-turn directions to get to the park. I'm like, okay, you up for Boss of the Year award. You up for Boss of the Year award. Yeah. So Thursday come, I'm in a great mood. I was walking around humming, smiling. And Friday comes and I purchased an outfit in the store that I was going to wear on a date. And I just changed in the storeroom. Now, I had bought a car. Well, I was purchasing a car that I got that Monday. It was a 1978 Monte Carlo. It was copper with a half-white Landau top. I loved that car. I mean, I got a lot of compliments on it because I always kept my car clean or tried to. It just rained so much in Louisiana. You pretty much got to be out there with a towel to wipe the water off when it rains in order to keep, looking bad for water drops. But I love that car. It had the velour interior on the seats, and I'm like, this is my baby. This is my baby. So I got the directions from my boss. I changed my clothes. And I come out, and I think I left a little bit after 6. Maybe I know it wasn't quite 6:10 when I left because I got a 22, 23-mile drive in front of me. So I'm driving through the park, and when you get to Carrollton and Tulane, you can go over this overpass, and it turns into Airline Highway, and then it's a straight shot of the Metairie. And it wasn't well developed then. It was mostly you look to the right, you see trees with Spanish moss and stuff hanging off of them. You look to the left, it's the same thing. And it was a highway, a smaller highway. So I went up there, and my boss just said, if you go past Winn-Dixie, which is a grocery chain there, you went too far, you might have to come up, turn around, come back. Well, I seen Winn-Dixie, so I was able to make the turn to get to the park. I pull up at the park, get out of the car, and this park is not huge. It had a few pieces of playground equipment and a basketball court with a tin roof over it. This park, the size of it, if you get 100 people in there, it's going to be packed. You'll still be able to maneuver in there, but it's going to be a lot of people in the park. It just wasn't a real big park. And now this is in a neighborhood. There's houses right across the street. When the park ends, there were 3 other houses on the end of that. And then there was a street, that runs, and then you make a left or a right to go further into the neighborhood. It's only about, I'm going to say that park, maybe a half a block from Airline Highway, because you could, see cars going up and down when they went by the intersection. But I walked in the park, I checked my watch at 6:56. And there's people playing basketball. There's people in there with their kids playing on the swings and stuff. And it's got these three rows of bleacher seats. And there's some people sitting over there. And there was a group of guys. It was 6 guys sitting not too far from me. They were far enough away where I couldn't hear what they were saying clearly. But I sat down on the end of the bench, and I'm just sitting there and I'm watching these guys play basketball. So I check my watch again. I'm like, okay, 7 o'clock, and I'm looking around to see if maybe she's coming down the street or from the back of the park. I'm looking to see if I see her, and I don't see her. And I'm like, okay, maybe she's running late. So there's one guy gets up from the group of 6 guys, and he walks over to me. He said, hey, man, how you doing? Like, I'm doing all right. How you doing? They're like, we speak in street slang, but he's like, how you doing? I'm like, I'm doing all right. He's like, hey, you want to play basketball with? And I looked down at what I had on, because I have on sandals, some dress shorts, and I got on a button-up shirt. I'm not dressed to play basketball, especially since I don't have on tennis shoes. And I look down at what I got on. I look back up at him. I'm like, I'm not here to play basketball, man. He's like, oh, yeah. I'm like, I'm waiting on somebody. He said, oh, who are you waiting on? Now, I've been like this my whole life, and I'm still like that. If a total stranger walk up to me and ask me, what you doing? Why? Am I bothering you? And I was at your business what I'm doing. I'm just doing what I'm doing. And I didn't pop off at him like that. I just, told him, I'm waiting on somebody. When she get here and you see her, if you know her, then you know who I'm waiting on. He's like, oh, all right. He's like, well, my name is Herman. I said, what's up, Herman? My name is Stubbs. And we kind of dapped up, did a little handshake we used to do back in the days. And he said, and I always laugh about this, but he said, you're not from here. He said, well, I can't recognize your accent. Now, I'm from Nebraska, okay? And I have been told I got a country accent. I don't hear it, but he said, I don't recognize your accent. I understand. I'm in Louisiana. Their accent is very thick, and sometimes it sounds like you got a mouthful of chewing tobacco and you're trying to talk around it without dribbling on your chin. So I busted out laughing, and he's looking at me like, "What?" I'm like, "Dude, I'm from Nebraska. You from Louisiana. You got the nerve to stand there and tell me I got an accent? You are hilarious." He did, he wasn't offended or anything, but he's like, he started talking about the football team we have, the Nebraska Cornhuskers. He's like, "Yeah, y'all be roughing up everybody, don't you?" I'm like, "Well, we got a pretty good college team, but that's all we got. That's why everybody follow." He's like, "Yeah, you got that guy wear that big cowboy hat." I like, "Yeah." So we just, having small talk, and one of the other guys comes over. He introduced himself. He said his name was Diamond. "Now you want to play basketball?" "I'm not here to play basketball, dude. I'm waiting on somebody." "Oh, yeah, who's that?" I said, "When she get here and you see her, if you know her, then you know who I'm waiting on." Now, all of these guys asked me that, but they introduced themselves. So I found out a little bit later on that they've been knowing each other since kindergarten, first grade. They basically grew up together, went to school, so they knew each other. And I also found out that Herman wasn't his government name, if you will. Nobody gave me their name that's on their birth certificate. They just gave me street name. I'm like, "Okay, that'll work." Well, I gave you Stubb because that's my street name. I'm not going to tell you my name was Roy. I got to figure out who you are and what you're about. Now, I didn't get a feeling that they were trying to set me up or anything like that. It just seemed like some young dudes that was out in the park on a Friday night, and rather than be out causing mayhem and mischief, they were just chilling at the park. Can't get in a lot of trouble just playing basketball at the park if that's all you're doing. So they sat down and we was talking, and they was asking me, about Nebraska. One of the things they said was like, "We didn't think it was no black people in Nebraska. That's supposed to be nothing but cornfields." I said, "Well, there's only 5 left since I moved down here, so there's really not a lot of black people in Nebraska." But I was just joking with them. So they went to go play basketball. I looked at my watch again, 7:15 done come and gone. It's coming up on 7:30, and I'm like, "Damn, she's running late. When is she going to get here?" 7:30 come and go. 7:45 come and go. About 7:50, I got that feeling in my stomach. And I said, "I done drove all the freaking way out here, and her ass didn't show up. What in the hell is really going on?" So I said, "Well, it's still early enough. Let me go find me something else to do. I just go get me something to eat, and I'll go down in the French quarters, find out what I can get into." I got to leave about probably 7:55, 7:50, between 7:55 and 8 o'clock. And Herman was like, "So you got stood up, huh, Stubb?" I said, "Yep, looks that way, man." He's like, "Well, since you're here, you might as well stay and play basketball with us." And I stood there for a minute, and I was looking at it because I've been fishing since I was 12. So I always keep a change of clothes and some tennis shoes in the trunk of my car, along with a small tackle box and a fishing pole, because I never knew where I was going to be, and I run across a body of water. It's like, I need to find out what kind of fish is swimming in there. So I said, "You know what? I'm going to stay." So I went into the bathroom and changed clothes and came back out. Now, I played basketball with these dudes off and on for the next 4 hours. There's a lot of basketball courts throughout Louisiana, at least in New Orleans, that some of them have them, but the majority of them do. They got these tin roofs over them because it rains so much in Louisiana, and it does very seldom sprinkles. It just be a downpour, that you could still stay in the park and play basketball, even if it's raining, unless the wind is blowing water under the cover area onto the court. So this particular park, Monday through Thursday, the lights stay on till 10 o'clock. And Fridays and Saturdays, they stay on till midnight. And then Sunday, they don't turn them on at all. I was asking the fellas about that. And that's why I know it was midnight, because all the lights just went out. And we was almost done with the game, so we just called it and side to side what else they was deciding what they was going to do. I was, drinking that hot faucet water. I wanted a cold beer. So I asked them, "Where's the closest liquor store? I want a cold beer." And I think it was Herman. It might have been a little bit, but somebody said, "Well, we putting our change together now, man. We about to walk up to the liquor store. Why don't you come and go with us?" I said, "Okay." Again, I ain't got no feeling that they're gonna do nothing to me. Of course, I could have been wrong, but at this particular time, I'm 5'11". I weigh 225 pounds. I can bench 300 pounds, and I can squat 500. Trying to get my body ready for the NFL because that's where I wanted to play football. I want to be able to make it in the league, and I'm not afraid of any man, woman, or child. Pat a little bit, but not seriously. I knew, you're a female, you're not gonna be able to get with me. Not that I ever would have fought her, but I'm not afraid of any physical confrontation with anybody because my brother taught me how to fight, and he always told me if you fight a bigger opponent, just think of this chopping down a tree. He explained to me what he meant, but I'm like, okay, so I don't go out looking for trouble, but I'm confident. I'm not arrogant. I'm confident in my ability. I made a decision when the guy said that. That changed my life. About my car, I'm not going to lie, I was vain. Shortly before I came to Louisiana, I had bought a gun from a guy off the street. It was a .357 Magnum. So I bought it for $100, and he told me, "No, everybody been murdered with this gun. It had been used to commit no robberies. Ain't nobody never been pistol with it. But, I bought it from a guy on the street. Now, he could have been getting rid of it because he had used it to kill somebody or any other means, but it wasn't registered. It was in the trunk of the car. Now, I could have put these 6 sweaty dudes in my vehicle, and we could have drove to the liquor store. Easy night. But I'm like, I'm not about to put these 6 sweaty, slightly fragrant guys in my vehicle, not in my baby. No, that's going to be a whole weekend for me to detail my car because, you sweat on velour suede, it's going to get hard and discolored. No, you're not getting in there. It ain't happening. So I said, okay, well, I got $5 since y'all putting change together. Y'all just add to that and we'll get what we can. Maybe we'll be able to get a case of beer, maybe we'll be able to get a 12-pack because this is 1981. So the lights is out, but you do have light coming into the park, excuse me, a little bit from the street lights. So we got the change and they started walking and I'm walking with them. So we go down the street and I'm thinking, maybe we're going to walk up to Winn-Dixie. But I said liquor store. I didn't say grocery store. And I didn't even know if Winn-Dixie was still open at that time or not. But anyway, we start walking down the street toward Airline Highway till we get to these railroad tracks. Now, they turned and started walking down the railroad tracks behind these buildings. And when I was coming up to the park, there's a junkyard on the corner, a tire shop, and a lumber yard. But they're spaced far enough apart that right directly almost in the center behind these buildings, each one of these buildings, there's a street light. And you can walk under one light, and before you get to the second light, there's an area of gloom. It's not pitch black, but it's gloomy back there where I will be able to see your silhouette. But unless you was 5 feet or closer to me, I'm not going to be able to tell what your facial features are. I could just see an outline of you. So on the right-hand side is this field of thistles. And if you don't know what a thistle is, it's a plant that starts out like a dandelion, and then it grows 5-6 feet tall in Nebraska anyway. But in Louisiana, the ones I seen was like 7 or 8 feet because of how much it rains. And when they get maybe about 3 feet tall, they got these thorns. I call them hypodermic needles, but they got these thorns on the leaves. And they'll give you a good stick. So I got this big field of thistles. When they get fully mature, they get a purple flower on the top of them, one single flower. And it's about 150 yards. But I didn't know till later, as you go further down the tracks, it actually comes down to maybe about 50 yards in width. But they ran all the way down the tracks past that third building. But it's dark over there. I mean, it's really dark in them thistles and stuff, man. And I'm walking around, I'm looking, and we walking and crunching on these rocks. And because we're on railroad tracks, all 7 of us couldn't walk side by side to go down the track. So it's 3 in the front, 2 in the middle, and then me and Herman is bringing up the rear. And the other fellas was talking, but I couldn't make out what they were saying because, like I said, we crunching on these rocks. Well, Herman asked me a question, and he's like, "Hey, man, how do you know when a baby is hungry?" Huh? I said, when they newborns, you usually got to feed them every 2.5 hours. How much do you give them? Between 2 and 4 ounces. Oh, okay. Well, do you know how to change diapers? I got nieces and nephews. Yeah, I know how to change diapers. He's like, is it hard? I'm like, no, you just peel the tabs off and stick them to the diaper and it's a wrap. He's like, oh, okay. I was like, now if they poop or something, you got to take some wet wipes or washcloth and clean them up and stuff. But changing diapers is easy, man. And I kind of looked at him like, what, to myself, what is this about? So then he said, well, how do you know when they're sick? I like, they either have a fever or they cry all the time, or, they'll let you know if you can't figure something out. I said, why are you asking me all these questions about kids, man? He said, oh, well, my girlfriend is about to have our first baby. Said, man, he's like, I'm scared to death. I said, the damage is done already. What you scared now for? And he was like, because I don't want to be the type of father that my father was. I'm like, well, what kind of father did you have? Non-existent. I said, oh, I'm sorry to hear that, man. I said, well, if you don't want to be the type of father your father wasn't, then don't. You got the choice right now. You know that your father wasn't around. Make sure you around. You got this girl pregnant. Just if y'all broke up shortly after the baby's born, you still need to be in your child's life. You don't have to be with the mother just to be a father. He's like, no, it ain't nothing like that, man. He's like, I don't know nothing about babies. I'm like, talk to your mom, talk to your grandmother. If they can't give you the answers, go to the library and pick up a book. Parenting, I said, it's not that hard. Now, I'm not no expert by that time by any means. And even now, I'm a grandfather. I'm still not an expert, but I have a lot more knowledge and experience. So he was worried. He was worried, but he was putting undue stress on himself because being a new father, if you don't have a little brother, a little sister, or nieces or nephews, then yeah, you got to kind of wing it, but just always ask questions. And I was telling him this stuff, and we walking around, and I'm looking around, and I happen to turn my head because he was on the right side of me. And I turned my head and I looked to the right, but I wasn't looking at him. I was looking in the thistles, and he's like, "What's the matter? Did you see something?" I'm like, "No, man, it's just dark back here." And now we're directly under the first light now. And I'm just looking around because it's dark back here, man. I ain't never been, this is a new part of town for me. I ain't never been here. He's like, "Wow, I thought you might have seen something." He said, "Well, there's a big black dog that lives in that junkyard. And every now and again, he'll get out. And when he come running at you, just pick up some rocks and start hollering and throw them at him. And he probably going to bark and growl, but usually he'll run off." I'm like, "Oh, that's nice to know. You telling me now." So we talking a little bit more and we walking. He asked me a couple more questions. And we're exiting out from underneath the first light, about to enter the area of gloom. And I was looking to my left. I was looking at this fence that they got that's running behind all these buildings. It's that tall chain link fence with the 3 strands of barbed wire on top. And I'm just taking in my surroundings. And I made a mental note of that. I don't know why. I just made a mental note of that. And there's a smell that's all over Louisiana, at least in New Orleans and Metairie. And it's like rotting vegetation, but with something else, like just kind of like a dirty smell. But you smell it wherever you go. And I think it's because it stays so humid and stuff with all the rain. You got a lot of vegetation growing, but you got some vegetation that's dying too. So it gives off a smell. And even down in the French Quarters, you can smell it. So I didn't smell any odor that I hadn't become accustomed to. But as we walking along, we're in the gloom and we crunch down the tracks. The other dudes is walking ahead of us. And we were spaced out maybe 3 or 4 feet. I had looked to my left and I looked back to my right. And I think I was about to ask Herman something, maybe how much further we got to go and get to the liquor store. Again, I'm not feeling like they set me up for anything because the other 5 guys, excuse me, really wasn't paying attention to me. They were just talking. So I was turning my head to the right and I seen something in my peripheral come out of the thistles. I didn't clearly see what it was at that time. I just seen something black come out of the thistles up onto the tracks. It jumped. Now, with everything that I've been through in my life and me not having no fear, no human being, something told me to run. And I used to run a 4.240. So when I get ready to get out of town, I'm on my way, lickety split. And I started running. And I couldn't have took more than 4 to 6 steps. And I heard this sound that sounds like when you either trip and fall on some rocks. Well, I guess in that case, because I didn't know what was going to happen next, somebody trip and fall on the railroad tracks and they hit the rocks and slide just a little bit. And Herman screamed, "Don't leave me." Now, I've never heard a human being, the way he said it, I've never heard that come out of a human being's mouth before. Never. There's something in there just, I guess it tugged at my heartstrings because he screamed it. "Don't leave me." Now, I don't know if this is a black people thing or if this is any race thing, but if you run up behind some black folks, because that's my experience, so I'm going to speak on them. They not looking back to see what you're running from. They just start running too. We'll figure out what you're running from later, but you're running, so evidently something must be out. So the other 5 guys took off running. When Herman said that, I'm thinking it's that dog from the junkyard that came out of these thistles and it's getting ready to maul Herman. I don't hear no growling or snarling or nothing like that. He's not screaming. So I slid to a stop and I bent down as I did and picked up 2 handfuls of these white rocks. And I turn around and I run back with my right hand cocked. And I got my mouth open, get out of here. And I'm going to throw these rocks. And I slid to, just a little bit, I slid to a stop and I'm looking because Herman's on the ground, on his back, but he's propped up on his elbow. And he's looking up. I can tell from the angle of his head, and he's got on this white tank top. Crouching over him, just because they're just outside the second light. And what I see is either the biggest dog on the planet or something else. I don't know anything about werewolves, dogmen, none of that up to this point, other than what I read in books or seen on TV. But this thing was huge, but I could see the outline of the head, which was approximately 24, 26 inches wide. I could see the outline of the ears. And I'm looking and I'm like, what is that? Dog, that's a big ass dog. That They said big black dog, but he sorely underestimated the size when he said big. He should have said ginormous or something because Herman looked like a kid up under this thing. Now, it's got his face maybe 8 inches away from his face. Now, if you ever tuck your chin down toward your chest, this is the posture that it has because it had to tuck his snout down in order to put his face that close to him without putting his snout directly making physical contact with him. So I'm looking at this, and as I'm looking, I'm like, are those shoulders? Dogs ain't got shoulders. What is that? What is that? So while I'm standing here trying to figure this out, the other guys, they'll stop running, and they coming back down the tracks, and they screaming. A lot of colorful language. I'm not going to repeat that on here, but what is that? What the F is it? What is that? What is it doing to Herman? They all of them, they screaming this. Now, on the other side of these thistles, you can see houses. They got the back porch lights on, or you can see in between some of them and actually see the house across the street that might have a front porch light on. Not every one, but enough so that you can see there's houses right there. You can hear traffic on the other side of these buildings going up and down Airline Highway. Now, I'm in the neighborhood. I'm not in the woods. I'm not rural. So I'm like to myself, what is that? Now, I'm not saying nothing because I've run back toward this thing. That put me closer to it. I'm probably between 9 and 11 feet away because it's right outside the light. And then I heard somebody. Now I'm standing in the middle of the railroad tracks. So the guys, in order to see it, I'm assuming they would have to fan out to the left and the right of me to see what they were seeing. And I hear somebody say, "Don't shoot it. Don't shoot it." And I got a thought run through my head like, yeah, please don't shoot it because I'm standing right here and I don't know how good a marksman you are. Don't shoot it. No. As soon as they said that, this thing's head snapped up and it came forward 2 steps to put his upper half of his body into the light. The first thing I seen that came out of the darkness was his hand came out and went down on them rocks. 5 fingers, just like my hand is. Not no raccoon paw, not no dog's paw, but it's got these 3-inch freaking claws on the end of them. Now, they were curved, but they weren't wickedly curved. But they were curved enough so that when they set his hand down, the tip of the fingers really didn't make a lot of contact with the ground. Now, maybe it was because of the rocks, but that's what I seen. And I'm like, that's a effing hand. That ain't no paw. That's a hand. And it's got this black fur on it and this huge muscular forearm. You know how if you ever watch a nature channel and you see a lion, not when it's on its belly, but when it's standing up and it's got, low, but it's creeping forward. That's how that hand came out of darkness. Then here comes this other one. And then the head comes into the light. Now, the eyes weren't glowing or anything prior to that, but when it came into the light, I'm assuming it was a reflection of the street light that made his eyes look like that, or that's just the way his eyes look. But the color of the eyes were, if you take the full moon when it's orange and a full moon when it's white and combine that color with a black pupil. I don't remember seeing an iris, but a pupil. And they were about big as golf balls. And I'm seeing this big ass wolf head. And this thing is looking at me. And then it did a sweep with his head, but there was a slight hiccup, like, I see you, 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 without stopping his head, meaning it looked at all of us. And then it was looking past me, I'm assuming at the guy that held the gun, because it stopped. And that's when the ears kind of went back, and then it did that grin where dog raised their jaws and you see their teeth. This thing's teeth, the canines would have put a male African lion's canines to shame. I mean, you want to talk about big? Now, it never opened his mouth, so I can't tell you what the tongue looked like, but the gums were black and pink. But the teeth was really white, but all the teeth in his mouth, even in between the canines, were cutting teeth. They weren't like a dog's molars. I'm talking about like how a bear traps teeth fit together. They were cutting teeth. And I'm like, no. You gotta be effing kidding me. And the look that it had on his face was, you really want to go there? You really want to go there? Now I'm looking at these claws and these big hands that's like 3 times bigger than mine. And just seeing the muscles in that forearm, because the arm is longer from the wrist to the elbow than from the elbow to the shoulder. So I'm like, okay. But just this calm voice in my head said, okay, I'm looking at a fucking werewolf. That's the only thing that makes sense. And these dudes, when she came into the light, these dudes is really, they really got amped up then. Man, that's a monster. That's a monster, you know. Look at that thing. And I'm just standing there because when it came forward, that put it like roughly 7-8 feet away from me. So I got a real good look at it. A real good look. And I'm like, I'm getting ready to die. Ain't no way out of this one, Roy. You about to go meet your maker. You gonna be the one that they pull up to the pearly gates and you in a 33-gallon garbage bag because you in pieces. You gonna feel every rip, every shred, every tear. This is not gonna be a pleasant death. And your life kind of flashes through your mind and it goes bullet train fast. Some of the things you've done, some of the things you haven't done, things that you want to do, it go really fast. But then also, because of your will to survive, you also start thinking, how can I get myself out of the situation? But you got to come up with the perfect plan in order to escape death. You out here on the railroad tracks with 6 dudes you just met. Who gonna save you? Now, these dudes were screaming and yelling. Didn't nobody come out the back of their house. No cars came down that street. Batman wasn't going to show up. Superman wasn't going to fly in. So what you going to do? And I'm like, when she growled, when she laid her ears back and she growled, it wasn't really loud. And I don't know if it hit me in my head and went down to my feet or hit me in my feet and went up to my head, but I felt it in my body and it wasn't really that loud, but it was enough to make me pee my pants. And I just stood there and then cut loose. I'm like, I don't know if that's a you going to Jesus meeting reaction or if you eliminating some extra weight in order for you to run a little bit faster. I don't know what that reaction is, but I just stood there and peed on myself and I'm looking at this thing. Josh, when I tell you this thing that I seen was big, now it's on all fours. When she came forward, she was almost looking me in my eyes on all fours. And just to see the shoulders and how the balls on her shoulders, you know, was bunched up with muscle, and then to see the bicep, and if she had a flex like she was in a bodybuilding contest, I'm pretty sure that bicep would have been close to the size of my head. Not that I got a big head, at least I don't think I do, but I know Herman's head was bigger than mine. I will say that because I found out later on that the reason they called him Herman was because of the size of his head, because they said his head was big like Herman the Monsters on the Monster Show. And I got a nice little giggle out of that because I'm like, well, Herman, yeah, you do got a pretty good sized orb, dude. But, you know, I wasn't trying to be mean or nothing to him. I just was laughing with the guys. But when you feed away from something, and other than Herman, I got what I consider the best look at it. it's been in these thistles, or I don't know how it came through the thistle, whatever, but there should have been debris in the coat. I didn't see leaves. I didn't see no grass. I didn't see broken thistles. I didn't see nothing. It almost looked like somebody just got done grooming her and then turned her loose. Her fur was only about 2 inches long, if that. But I could see the muscle definition in her arm, and even, the ligaments in the back of the hand. You could see that it wasn't really, what's the word I'm looking for? It didn't really stand out, but I could see them because of the weight that she had and the way she placed her hands. But when she growled, that's, if she had did it louder, my heart probably would have stopped, because it was a threatening growl, like, pull that trigger if you want to. So she was looking at dude, but when there was more than an animal there looking, there was intelligence there, and I'm like, I'm stuck in that repeat. I'm going to die. I'm going to die. I'm getting ready to die. I'm going to die. The other dudes is hollering and screaming. And how can I get out of this situation alive? And I had been looking, remember I said earlier, I had been looking at that fence behind the buildings. Well, the middle building, the fence wasn't that far away from the back of it. And if I could scale that fence, I know I'm gonna get chewed up on that barbed wire, but if I can get up on top of the barbed wire, I can jump from there and grab onto the back of that building and pull myself up, and then I just run across it and drop down. I'll be right next to Airline Highway. Maybe I can flag somebody down. I don't know, but that thought kind of went through my head, and I know I shifted my feet in that direction. That way, I'm trying to cut down on minimal movement, because when I go, I gotta go. And I did that, and her head snapped to me, and she looked at me dead in my eyes. And it was, run. Now, I'm not saying I got any telepathic communication. I'm relaying to you what I perceived was expression on her face. Run. I dare you. See how far you going to get. Run. My heart started pounding so much that I couldn't hear anything. I just heard this thud, 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 and I didn't realize till later I couldn't even hear the dudes yelling and screaming because my heart would be so loud. So rather than run, I just stood there and peed on myself again. I felt like she knew exactly what I was going to do. And I had just turned my feet and crunched them rocks a little bit. I could hear her breathing. I smelled her breath. And it smelled like she ate something and just never, ever brushed after that. That's the best description I can give you. It's not like a doggy or a canine breath or a real bad case of halitosis. It just was, she ate something and didn't brush her teeth. Now, I don't know if these things do brush their teeth, at least in that form, but that's what I smelled. But to see the rise and fall of her size, and she wasn't breathing as if she just got done running. It was an even breathing, because I looked at her and I'm like, again, I'm getting ready to die. And I had some other thoughts go through my head, but they weren't really clear. I don't know if it was now I'm saying this now based on years after I had my encounter and some of the things that people have said to me during the last 3 years that I thought about, but I didn't really go through the process of thinking about it completely. I just said, well, yeah, that's possible, or yeah, that's possible, or no, that's not possible. But when you sit down and you think about it, because I've gathered new information, what it could have been, and I'm like, well, it's possible that could have been the case, but I don't have anything concrete to where I can say, yes, this is what it was. But just, you know, this is going to be branded in my brain till they put me in the dirt or until I get to the age where I just Alzheimer's or some dementia may kick in. And I don't know, but this creature was, I ain't never seen, I mean, I've seen big elephants and stuff like that, of course, but when you're looking at something that's got a wolf head or like a black German shepherd's head, yet from the shoulders down to the waist, that's a human being. And then it picks up again with a canine's hindquarters. That, it just didn't make sense to me. The only thing I was sure of was I'm going to die, and it's going to be because I got killed by a werewolf. I never heard no dogmen or nothing like that time. This is what it is. It's a werewolf. And I didn't see a tail. If it had a tail or what the genitalia looked like, Herman would have been the best one to tell you that, because when she came forward in 2 steps, she actually had her hindquarters over his face. Herman didn't move. He didn't start trying to squirm and get out. He didn't, nothing. And when she came forward, he was basically kind of blocked from view, but he didn't start screaming or do nothing. So the guys is wigging the hell out. I'm standing here looking at this thing, and she looked me dead in my face, and she looked at me like she knew me. I mean, if you ever had a dog when you come home from work or the store or the gym or wherever, and your dog's waiting at the door, and they look at you and they start wagging their tail and their whole body get into it, but the dog looks at you like she know you. Now, take that and put your girlfriend, your wife, one of your kids look on their face when you come in, and they know you. So combine those two, a human being and an animal, and then look at you like, not, I didn't hear any words and nothing like that. It just that when she looked at me, it was like, go ahead and try it. Run. See how far you get. But it was almost as if at the end of that, it would have been like, go ahead, Roy, run. See how far you get, Roy. And I'm looking at this and I'm like, what the hell? But I don't know no damn monster. I never seen this before. So that's just something that's going to remain a question to a certain extent in my head. Now, should I see another werewolf or dogman and they give me the same look, then I could say, okay, that's just the way they look at you. But since I haven't, I can just go with the one. And that thing looked at me like it knew me. So I'm standing here, my Converse is wet, shorts, underwear wet. I'm going to die. I want to run. Believe me, but my body just is like, it would not respond to what my mind is telling me. I'm just stuck there. So I'm looking at this thing and looking at me. The dudes is hollering and screaming. Again, I'm like, okay, now she focused on me. Here we go. Now here we go. And yet, that's not what happened. What happened next is I've narrowed it down to 1 or 3 things. And it's just my opinion. But if you ever had a dog that had fleas and they were sitting next to you or laying down, and then all of a sudden they just stayed that real quick movement and started biting at the base of their tail or their haunches. Not that she did that, but she flinched like that real quick flinch. And then she looked in the thistles and stood up. Okay. Wait a minute. Hold on. You come in here on all fours. Now you standing up on two legs. I didn't hear no popping, no snapping where it sound like joints was realigning, none of that. She just stood smooth the hell up real freaking fast. And I'm looking up and up at her. And I'm like, my mind just taters mashed, biscuits brown. My mind is blown. You stood up on two legs. You don't look awkward, off balance, or anything. You stood up on two freaking legs and you looking over in the thistles like we no longer matter. But she jerked like she had got hit by something. And then she stood up and looked over there, and I'm like, this thing is 9.5 feet. And that's when I could see the muscles in her thighs, which was just ridiculously big. I mean, you could see the muscles, her stomach. She had a six-pack. I could see that under her fur. And she had 4 breasts. Now, I didn't look any lower than that because when she stood up, I went from where her head had been as she went up. That's how I was able to see the thighs and stuff. But I'm looking at this big ass head, and the length of the arm, her arms had to be 5 feet long, maybe a little bit longer, because she could have dunked the basketball standing flat foot. I played basketball a lot of years of my life. I had just spent 4 hours playing with these guys. I know a standard basketball rim is 10 feet. She could have dunked the basketball standing flat footed with arm length to spare. And I'm looking at this thing, and my mind is, it just blew me away that she stood up and she was standing there, but she's not looking at us. She looked in the thistles. So I looked in the direction that she was looking. I took a quick look over there, and I seen about 50, 60 feet back in them tall ass thistles, 6 red lights. Now, I'm going to always say that because her breast did not indicate that she was a nursing mother, whether it be a canine, primate, and a human being supposed to be a primate. So I'm just going to throw that in there. Or a human being. They breasts get full of milk, they sag, or the nipples become distended from nursing. No, these 4 breasts look like a woman that goes to the gym on a regular basis to stay fit and trim, not to bulk up because she's a power lifter or something like that. And the distance between them, my guesstimation is I could have took my hand and stuck it in between her breasts, the top one and the bottom one, and it would have slid right in there. They were that close together. But when she came up, there wasn't an excessive bounce from a woman that's, wearing a D or something like that. It was just a little bloop bloop. And then she went up and she looked over there. So I looked and seen the lights. And the best description I could give you of them is if you take a red reflector off a bicycle and get a black magic marker and start in the middle and just start filling it in, going in a circular pattern until you come close to the edge, about an eighth. I don't think it was a quarter of an inch, but I'm going to say an eighth, maybe a little bit bigger, a light. It was a bright red light like that, but the centers were black, or at least I didn't see the center. I just seen them, and I was like, the fuck is that? And then I looked back at her because I'm like, the lights are over there. Danger's right here. And that's when I really started looking at her, and her coat, like I said, she looked like she was well groomed, but there was splashes of gray in her coat, like a splash here, a splash there, not a uniform pattern, almost like a patchwork quilt is the best description I can give you, because it was just a splash here, a splash there. And I'm looking and I'm like, this is a monster. Again, this is a freaking werewolf. This is a monster. But when she stood up, I'm like, and you got breasts? It's a female? What the? It's a female? So the dudes, when she stood up, they went to a whole different thing. They just went to a whole different level. They was screaming and hollering even more now. And then I heard one dude saying, it's got titties. Do you see the titties? It's got titties. And I'm like to myself, yeah, I could see that. But I'm rooted to the spot because my mind is saying run, but my body just will not respond. It's like I'm been rooted there. And she looked in the thistles. She slightly flexed her hind legs and jumped off them railroad tracks. She came down about 18, maybe 20 feet in the thistles and took off running. And when I seen, because I couldn't see her, I was elevated on the tracks because when you come off the street, the sides kind of fall away. So that's how I gauged the thistles was 7 or 8 feet high. But I couldn't see her. She went back down on all fours, but I could see the path she was taking because she was laying them thistles down and they was popping right back up like they weren't even broken or nothing. I'm like, she got to be doing 60. She got to be. And she ran, and I watched until I seen the thistles stop moving, and then I ran to Herman. Herman's still in the same position he was in. His eyes are blank and glassy. He's got some drool coming out the left side of his mouth, and he's just looking up into the sky. And you're like, Herman, come on, man, we got to go. Herman, come on, we got to go. Herman's not responding at all. He is, I can only imagine where his mind put itself in order for him to be in the condition that he was. Because we went and we were shaking him. We was calling his name. We finally got him up and he's not responding. So we pretty much dragging him. And I'm like, okay, we need to go, we headed back to the park. They say, no, we're going to the liquor store because they need to get to a phone to call the police. Okay, so y'all about to go further down these tracks? Yeah, because the liquor store is right down there. But that thing just ran in that direction. Well, we got to go down here now. I could have left them, but it's a monster in the neighborhood. My herd mentality is strong right now because I'm like, if she come back, I'm running. I know I can beat at least 5 of y'all running. I know that for a fact. Okay, I'm going to stick with y'all. So we go down the tracks past the lumber yard. There's a path. We got to go through the thistles. Wait a minute. That thing came out of the thistles, but I didn't know that as you get further down, the width narrows down to, like I said, about 50 feet. And they have been going back and forth through this area so much that there's no thistles growing. It's just dirt, but you can walk 2 abreast going through there. So I got my arm around, Herman's arm around my neck and one of the other guys on the other side of him. And we kind of go through like this because there's 3 people instead of 2. So you try not to get stuck. So we going down through the thistles and we came out pretty quick. And there's a light that I see on the back of the store. That was a liquor store and there's a car parked back there. So we come out on the back part of it and it was grassy back there, but they kept the grass cut. So we go around side the building. I put Herman on this ledge and I got my hand in his chest because he's still not responding to anything. But that's when we've noticed that he had evacuated both of his bowels. His head is just pretty much hanging down like that, and I got my hand on his chest. So 3 of the guys running through the store. It's about, we left out of the park about 12:30. Yeah, because they was talking back and forth about how much the beer was going to cost. And they go into the liquor store. They hollering and screaming at the clerk. All talking at once. And this guy is looking at them, because it's monster, man. We just seen a werewolf on the railroad tracks. It's a monster back there, but they all talking at once. My friend Herman, and he's looking at us like, looking at them like, okay, because if everybody's talking at once, you're not going to be able to hear what one person said. You don't go hear one word every now and again. So he's looking at him. And then he's like, listen. I don't know what y'all been smoking. I don't know what y'all been shooting. I don't know what y'all been snorting. It's almost closing time. Make your selection. Bring it up here and pay for it because I'm getting ready to close. No, man, you don't understand. We not playing no game. I don't know if he thought we were trying to set him up to rob him or whatever, but you got three dudes hollering and screaming about a monster. I kind of understand what his point was because I'm getting close. Y'all couldn't be talking about damn monsters. Miss me with that. Keep it pushing. But they was telling the God's honest truth. So he said it to him again. Make your selection and bring it up here. Pay for it. I'm getting it closed. They kept talking. Finally, he said, basically just get out of the store if you ain't buying nothing. So they come out and it was Lil Bit that was standing in the door. Now I got my hand on Herman to keep him from face planting, but I'm trying to listen to follow what they saying. The other dudes are standing on the other side of me. They looking through the window too. So Lil Bit come out and he's standing in the door. He said, "Hey, is that your car in the back?" The dude said, "Yeah, why?" He said, "Can you at least move your car up in the front before we leave?" He said, "Man, because I swear on everything I love, there's a monster back there on the railroad tracks. We just seen it. And it got titties." Like, why the hell did you have to add that? Ain't monster enough, but, in the moment, you never know what's going to come out of your mouth. So they come out of the store, and I tell them, "Here, man, come and hold Herman. Let me go and talk to him." Because I'm like, I done peed on myself. My shoes is wet. If you think that we lying, dude, take a look. But they came and got Herman. So I walked up to the glass. So I started tapping on the glass. He didn't pull the drawer out of the register. He's sitting there counting out the drawer. And I knocked on the thing. He looked up. So I did, "Hey, can you just dial 911? And he's like, did that shooing motion, man. Go on with that. Ain't nobody got time for your games. And I'm like, "Please, can you just call the police?" Now, years later, I thought about this. And I had a conversation with somebody not too long ago. And I said, "You know what? I could have made him call the police. All I had to do was pick up one of them rocks out of the parking lot and throw it through that big old picture window. He would have called the police then, or maybe he would have shot me. I don't know. But he would have called the police eventually. But then I'm looking at destruction of property, and that's going to be a whole another ball of wax." So I just kind of looked at him and said, "Okay, man, thanks for nothing." I hear the dudes, they gathered around Herman now, and they like, "What's this stuff in Herman's hair?" And I'm like, "Okay, what is this now?" So Shorty Mac was standing there in front of him, and he was messing with his hair. So I walked down there, I kind of showed him, and like, "What are y'all talking about? What's wrong with his hair?" Well, Herman got this white spot in his head. And we had been walking along these white rocks on the railroad tracks. I'm thinking, okay, well, that's just rock dust. So I started brushing at it. It's not getting lighter. It's not coming out. I don't see no dust flying up off his head. And I'm like, "I mean, what the hell?" So I licked my thumb and my forefinger and I start rubbing his head. It's not getting any lighter or darker. So I took my fingers and I kind of parted his hair all the way down to his scalp. Herman got a white circle in his head about that big. Now, I met this dude a little bit before 7 o'clock. I played basketball with him off and on for 4 hours. When we weren't on the basketball court, Herman was always the one that was sitting next to me on one side or the other. Whether I was playing against him or with him, I seen Herman's hair when he walked up. His whole head was completely black. So now you got this white spot in your head and it's not coming out. Now, at that time, I didn't know nothing about a person can go through something and their hair turn white or parts of their hair turn white. So I'm like, what the hell? So I'm, calling him Herman. Herman, you okay, Herman? He ain't responded. So I kind of gave him a few, at least I believe they was light slaps. They might have been hard and I intended just because of the adrenaline, but he didn't respond. Okay. Cashier turns the outside lights off. We gotta go. And I'm like, I damn sure ain't about to go back up the railroad tracks. Now, I don't know where I'm at now. So how we gonna get back to where I can get my car? So we gotta take the long way around. It took us about 45 minutes because Herman is not, every fourth or fifth step, he might have been putting a foot down to help us, but literally we're dragging him. Then if we heard a noise that we couldn't associate with something that we would normally hear, we stop, circular form, semicircle formation, everybody looking in every direction, because I'm like, if that freaking thing come back, I'm leaving. I don't even know where the hell I'm running, but I'm running. Then when we're walking, we're talking, but it's kind of low, and we like, man, did you see that thing? Mostly I stay silent because I'm still trying to process what I see. But these dudes is talking, and they like, man, did you see that thing? And he's like, you should have shot it. And I'm like, no, the hell, you shouldn't have shot it. I'm standing right in the middle of them tracks. I'm like, I don't know what kind of marksman you are. No, you shouldn't have shot it. And then I'm like, matter of fact, who got the damn gun? Now, one of the dudes had a fanny pack. He had a snub nose 38. Now, based on my best guesstimate, what I saw would have been between, I'm going to say 500 and 525, 525 pounds. It was that big. My father used to drive 18-wheeler for a packing house. Sometimes he hauled just bins full of raw meat. Sometimes we pulled the cattle car. So I've seen it when they've been loading the bulls and the cows onto this truck and when they've offloaded them. So I'm a decent judge of character when it comes to weight. And that's where I'm going to put her weight at. When at my age, not knowing anything remotely close to what I know now about these creatures, it's a werewolf. That's what I seen, a werewolf. The dudes are saying the same thing. It's a werewolf. It's a monster. I was having trouble processing that. But of course, I'm with these fellas trying to get back to the park. So finally, we make it back to, we come in on the other side of the park, cross through it, go across the street. Herman lives in the second house from the corner, right across the street from the park. We get on the porch, get to his house, get him up on the porch. I sat him down, and I still got to have my hand in his chest. Just like they did at the liquor store, 3 dudes run up there, one is ringing the doorbell, another one's beating on the door, another one is tapping on the window. Now, it's almost 2 o'clock in the morning, because the liquor store back then closed at 1 o'clock. It was only a few minutes before 1 when we got there. So Herman's mother comes, flings the door open. Who the hell is out here beating on my door like the police? Just like they did at the liquor store. They all start talking at once. Monster, railroad tracks, Herman, werewolf. And she's looking, fanning her head like that, looking at him. And then she's like, shut up. And pointed at one, you, what happened? He said, something wrong with Herman. A monster almost got him. She's like, wait a minute, what? What's wrong with my baby? We don't know. She kind of moves him out of the way and come walking forward. Now, I ain't never seen this lady before, and she ain't never seen me before, unless she came in the Chess King and I don't remember her. But I don't remember ever seeing her. So she looks at me, but she's more focused on Herman. And she said, I got my hand in his chest, and she come down and she grabbed him by the shoulder and shake him. Herman. Herman don't respond. And she shook him again. Herman. He don't respond. So she walks down and grab him by his chin and turn his face and look at him. He still got that blank look on his face. She's like, oh my God, I don't know what y'all done did to my baby, but don't nobody leave. I'm calling the police. When she said that, I laid him back on the porch, so from his knees down was dangling, and I walked out her yard, and then I ran as fast as I could up the street to my car, because I must have been going pretty quick, because a couple of houses up there was some people sitting on the porch. It was 2 men and a lady, and I heard one of the ladies say, What is he running from? Because I'm pretty sure they could hear what was going on down at Herman's house. And I got through the trunk of my car, and in front of God and everybody, I stripped out of them shoes, them wet underwear, and wet shorts. I threw on the shorts I had on, grabbed my sandals, and I jumped in my car. When I pulled away from the curb, my back tires were spinning. I went down the street. I didn't even stop for the stop sign on the corner. I just barreled right out on the airline highway, and I almost hit a car, and I almost got hit by another car. And I know that because the guy that almost hit me was, honking his horn and flipping me off. He'd do whatever. I floored it. I'm flying. I got to go home. Now, I've been asked before, why did you leave? Well, first of all, there's a werewolf in the neighborhood. I still got to get home. I got Herman home. If I owed him anything, I got him home to his mom. From whatever happens after that, they have to handle. Second reason is I got a gun in the trunk of my car that's unregistered. If the police is called, I don't know if any of the other guys had a vehicle. If the police are called, they see Herman's condition, they not going to believe that we just seen a werewolf. They going to think y'all gave him some kind of drug or did something to him. This is a condition. I got a car. They search my car, find that gun. 9/10 of the law is possession. They take that gun and do a ballistic test on it. That gun comes back to a murder that was committed in Omaha. You are in possession of this gun in another state. I ain't trying to go to jail down south, let alone anywhere else. So I took my hindquarters home. When I got home, I put my couch in front of the door. I went in the kitchen and unplugged the refrigerator, and I pushed that in front of the door. And I'm like, this might slow her down just enough to give me a chance to get a clean headshot. I went in the closet, got my speed loaders, and loaded both of them. Then I went in the kitchen, reached right up in the cabinet, got me Jack Daniel's Green Label, and I took me 2 shots out of there. And then I started replaying what had happened to me. Now, the one thing I didn't say is this, because I'm not 100% sure. I'm in the high 90s, but it could have been something else. But when she stood up on them railroad tracks and looked to the right, I could have swore I seen a gold hoop earring in her left ear. I know what gold looked like when it flashes in the sun or under artificial light if the light is bright enough. I seen a gold flash. Could it have been a tracking device of some type? It could have been. But I know when that girl came in the store, she had on gold hoop earring. But on the size head that she had, it looked more the size of a bracelet. Back in the 70s and 80s when women, or black women, they would wear them really big gold hoop earrings. She had on 2 of them. But the size of that head, it would have been the size of a bracelet. So now I got to figure out what the hell just happened to me and why. I was supposed to meet the chick at that park. Did she show up in her other form? And unless somebody can give me 110% proof that it wasn't her, that's what I'm going to my grave believing. Because she never contacted me after that. She never came back in the store. Now, I'm not saying I ain't never been stood up before, because it happened 2 more times in my life. But for what happened that night, based on who I was supposed to meet, I'm pretty good at math, but if I build a rocket ship, I suggest you don't ride in it, because that's not what I do for a living. But that's at that particular point in time, that's the only thing that made sense to me. This chick that I met at the store was planning on either having some Roy Tartar or it was going to be some bestiality stuff going on. I ain't got my hand raised for neither one of them. So I got my journal and I started writing. And I started writing and I'm writing and I'm sitting there and I'm drinking and writing. And thank God I hadn't ordered a pizza or something like that. I think my hand was shaking so bad I probably wouldn't have hit the driver through the door, but I would have put bullets all around the frame. I was in a state and I'm thinking about what the hell did she do to Herman when she was looking him in his eyes like that? Was she taking part of his soul? What was she doing? Why this dude that was maybe a year older than me had all black hair when I met him, but now he got this white spot in his head? You know, I had way more questions than I did answers. And plus I'm scared because I'm like, that wench know where I live at. She got my phone number. She know where I work at. So if she didn't get me tonight, it's just a matter of time. If she truly wanted to get me. And then I also like, okay, maybe did one of these dudes set me up? Did my boss set me up? What, I had so much stuff that I had to try to process, but I had very little to go on to give myself a definite answer. So now everything is suspect. I mean, every single thing is suspect. I don't know why that happened. I don't know what the rhyme or reason was, but it cost me. It cost me a lot in the years that followed. I mean, I was supposed to go back to work Monday. I called in and I couldn't go back to work until Tuesday because I was not ready to leave my house. I did not feel safe. And when I went to work, I had my gun in the back of my pants. I get to work. My boss is like, so how was your date? Said it didn't happen. She was like, what? Didn't happen. I went on to work. I started doing stuff, just doing little stuff to stay busy. But every little noise I heard, I was jumping. I'd look at the door, or if a shadow went by, somebody walking down the street, I'm looking, jerk my head and look at my boss. Must have been watching me because she's like, Roy, you okay? No, I'm not. She was like, what's the matter? Nah, I don't want to talk about it. What? I don't want to talk about it. So she, the whole day she stayed at me. Sure, you can talk to me, Roy. I know you ain't got a lot of family here. You want to talk to me about it? Tell me what? No, I don't. Finally, I got kind of sick of it. She was like, well, why you don't want to talk to me about it? I said, because the person that left out of here Friday is not the person that came back Tuesday. And if I tell you what happened to me, it's going to cost me my job. She's like, what? I'm like, yeah. So I don't want to talk about it. But she could see that it was really bothering me. Finally, I guess it was a little bit before 3:00. She's like, she pulled me to the side. She's like, Roy, just tell me what happened. She said, well, can I ask you some questions about the date? And I'm like, what? No date. She was like, what? I'm like, she didn't show up. And she's like, wait a minute. She's like, so you didn't kill that girl. You didn't rape her or nothing like that. I'm like, how can I kill or rape somebody that never showed up? She's like, just tell me what happened. I said, I'll tell you what happened to me on one condition. She said, what's that? I said, go back in the office and print out my final check. Because when I get done talking, I know I'm going to have a job, but I want to at least leave out of here with my final paycheck. She's like, I'm not going to fire you. You said you didn't commit a crime or nothing. I'm not going to fire you. And I stood there and I looked at her for probably a good solid minute. I was like, okay, you want to know what happened? And I told her. She didn't interrupt me. She just stood at the end of the counter and she kind of was like this, looking at me. And when I got done talking, she said, kind of matter-of-factly, oh, you seen a Loup Garou. I done just told this woman about something that terrorized the hell out of me, and I'm still in that state. And you want to stand here and start making fun of me, talking about I seen a Loup. I said, have you not been listening to what I just told you? I'm not talking about no damn dude named Loup. And she kind of smiled. She's like, no, that's not what I said. I'm like, what are you saying? And she said, I said Loup Garou. I said, what the hell is that? She said, well, my grandmother told me that is a French werewolf. And I stood there and looked at her, and I'm pretty sure my mouth was open. I said, werewolf. So werewolf, she's like, that sounds to me like what you seen. I said, now, that wench that brought her, and I was saying wench then, I'm saying that right something. That wench brought her hindquarters in this shop and agreed to go on a date with me. And she's a werewolf. She's like, well, I don't know. And I even told her about the earring. That kind of made her raise her eyebrows, like, what? I said, so, okay, what do you know about these things? Can you kill them? She said, well, my grandmother told me, and I found out later grandmother's grandmother. My grandmother told me that you need some rock salt, some oil, and some fire. Again, I looked at her and I'm like, why do you think this is a joke? Ain't nobody talking about barbecuing no damn werewolf. Well, why do you keep saying this? She's like, well, I'm not making fun of you. I'm just telling you what my grandmother told me. You take the rock salt and you throw it on the werewolf. They're supposed to be highly allergic to rock salt. Then you put the oil on them and then you got to set them on fire. I said, oh, hell, that ain't going to work for me. She's like, why not? I'm like, okay, let's say I get the rock salt on this thing. They're highly allergic, so they burning and itching and scratching. That's going to heighten the pissed off level that they at. Then I got to put some oil on them. Then I got to light a match and hope the wind don't blow it out and set them on fire. Hell no, that's not going to work for me. So that just means I'm going to die 3 times worse than I would have died if I hadn't ever did none of that. That's what my grandmother told me. I'm like, can I kill her with a silver bullet? She said, you got some silver bullets? I'm like, desperate times calls for desperate measures, so I probably could get some. She's like, well, I don't know if you can kill them with silver bullets or not. She said, because this is a French werewolf, so I guess they go by different, different rules. I don't know what those would be, because I figured silver, unless it's just some made up stuff, is supposed to be able to kill a werewolf, and whether you shoot them in the head or the heart. So we had this discussion, and she's like, well, I don't think you crazy, because Louisiana is a weird place. There's all kind of strange stuff that goes on around there. I've heard about vampires, werewolves, demons, and spirits. And she said, I don't even want to get started on voodoo. Now, voodoo in Louisiana, at least at that time, that was a real viable thing. People really believed in that. If you screwed somebody over, or if you wanted certain promotions, or a woman to fall in love with you, or a man, you go see a voodoo priestess, and they can make it happen. If somebody tell you somebody put roots on you, you're going to have to go see a voodoo priest or priestess to get it off of you. That's what you better do, because it is a strong part of their culture. I'm having to deal with this on a daily basis, Josh. But the only time I could get any type of peace, if then, I started drinking heavily. I was going through a half a fifth to a gallon of Jack Daniel's Green Labels a week. Now, I go through a half a fifth almost every day. That's because I had to get drunk to pass out, because the nightmares that I had with this thing catching me and what it was doing to me in the nightmares, it started messing with my psyche to where I'm jumpy in the daytime. I'm get off work. I stop working night shift. 5 o'clock is it. I ain't working after 5. And she's like, well, we'll adjust the schedule, for you. But she said, but you might have to go back nights. I'll find another job before I got to work nights. I'm not being out after dark. My social life. I ain't trying to date nobody. It's a damn shame when you walking through the grocery store or at the mall or something, or even going to get you some fast food, and you see these women walk around, and first thing going through your head is, I wonder when the frick she gonna spur fangs and fur. Not how beautiful she look, or maybe I'd like to get to know her name. Hell no. All of them monsters. I don't know. I can't pick out the ones that is and the ones that ain't, but they need to wear signs if they gonna change, because the night that I had my encounter, it was not a full moon. This was July 9th, 1981. If you want to check the lunar calendar, you can. It wasn't a full moon. If it had been a full moon, maybe I would have seen something in the thistles because of the light from the moon, but it was really dark back there. So imagine, if you will, 3 years of being an alcoholic. 3 years of not going out after dark. If it start getting dark and I might be with some of my teammates or something, be like, man, you going to the party tonight? No, why not? When it start getting dark, I got to be inside. What you mean you got to be inside? When it start getting dark, Roy going to be inside. Because I'm figuring this thing is just waiting for the right moment to come back and finish what it started. And I don't even know what the hell it was going to do when it showed up. But you got all of these things that you have to process through your head. Did she call her and tell her, hey, I got some new meat that just moved into town? Ain't got that many relatives. This will be an easy get for you, and ain't nobody going to look for him for a while. Or was it one of them guys that approached me when I got to the park? Did y'all have an agreement to get me to that area? But I had to kind of discount that simply because in order for her to know that I wasn't going to get in my car and take them to the liquor store, or if I wasn't just going to get directions and go, she would have to be a master tactician. She would have to be. There was no one, I don't think, unless she went through quite a few variables, how she would come up with something. Oh, and just in case that he don't drive all by himself, it's your job to get him on the tracks. Herman, that poor dude, with the state that he was in the last time I seen him, he was in a much worse state than I was. Because it's like he had checked out. He wasn't even being verbal in anything that he was doing. And if his life, which unfortunately it wasn't, I would have much rather his life had been like mine after he had his encounter. But I found out in 2021 what happened to him. And this is, when I say God will make a way, it happens. I got a cousin that lives in Texas, and his girlfriend, well, I'll put it like this. She could see dead people. And I was skeptical at first when my cousin told me this. I'm like, out of all the chicks you could have met in Texas, well, how the hell you end up with one that can see dead people? He's like, cuz I'm telling you, I'm like, okay, man. He's like, you don't believe me, do you? I'm like, I'm just saying, okay, man. He said, but I know you do. We like brothers. And I know when you say certain things the way you say it, you don't believe me. I'm like, if I called you up and told you that my girlfriend could see dead people, what would you tell me? He said, I believe you. I said, well, I didn't say you was lying. I just said, okay. He said, but it's the way you said, okay. All right, cuz, all right. Well, I told him, let me talk to her. Let me ask her a few questions. And we spoke on the phone. And I asked her, so if you can really see dead people, describe to me what they look like. She said, I could tell you about grandmother. Wait a minute, what? Now, grandmother died years ago, way before he even knew her. And any pictures that he would have had of her, he lost them in the storage unit. So he didn't have, of course, didn't have no cell phones or nothing, but any Polaroids or stuff he would have had, they were lost years ago before he met her. And she told me that she seen grandmother and Pat standing in the kitchen at this house they used to stay in. And she described grandmother to a T. And I'm like, so wait a minute, you said she was standing in the kitchen. She said, yeah, she was standing in the kitchen doorway next to his mom, and they was looking at us sitting in the front room. And there was a particular thing that grandmother used to do, and some older people do it. I even do it now, where you look over the top of your glasses. But grandmother, when she does it, it's because you done screwed up. It was never, I'm trying to see better. It's because it's going to cost you. You got about to pay the piper for what you did. So when she described that look, I'm like, I said, did you ever tell her what grandma looked like? He's like, well, yeah, I told her she was an old lady, but I never gave her no real specifics. So I said, wow. So when I shared my encounter the first time on another podcast, I sent him the link. I'm like, check this out. And he was like, he listened to it and then he called me. How come you never told me? Cuz I'm like, because I didn't think you would believe me. He said, dude, I've been knowing you since I was 8 years old. We basically grew up together. Why would you not think I would leave you? I'm like, did you hear what I said I seen? He said, yeah. He said, but I know you, dude. I know you're not going to lie about nothing like that. But why didn't you tell me? I'm like, I didn't think you believed me. So she was sitting there listening to it too. So she also has either a photographic memory or she has a photographic memory. That's the only way I could say it, because she knows more than 10,000 people on her Facebook and stuff like that, and she can remember all their names. And I'm like, how can you do that? She was like, I don't know. I've always been able to remember stuff real good. So she took it upon herself to put the word out with her friends that I was looking for these guys. But she described Herman as around my age with a white spot in his head. Now, when Hurricane Katrina hit New Orleans, a lot of people got displaced. They sent them as far away as New York. They even sent some here to Arizona. They got pushed everywhere. Well, I think it was maybe about 2.5 weeks. I don't think it was quite 3. She called me up and she said, I think I found who you're looking for. And I'm like, who'd you find? She's like, well, I'm not sure. I don't think it's one of the guys that was there, but didn't you say that dude was about to be a dad? I'm like, yeah. She said, I think I found his son, because now bear with me on this one, because one of her friends, cousin, sister, co-workers was dating, and I had to write that down, believe me, was dating a dude that had some pictures of him when he was a kid with his dad, and his dad got this white spot in his head. I'm like, well, put us in contact. Let me see. God is good. I called the dude up, and I kind of regret doing that now, but it's Herman's son. He's in his 30s. I don't ever want to talk to him again. After 3 separate conversations, that young man he doesn't believe in cryptids. Absolutely not. There are no such thing as monsters. A dog man, yeah, that's just a guy that owns a lot of damn dogs. Bigfoot, that's people in suits just trying to get shot by trying to scare somebody in the woods. Now this is his take. And I was trying to tell him, this is what happened to your father that night on them track. His thing is, just tell me what drug you gave my father that cost me a father when I was a kid. I'm like, what do you mean? Nobody gave him a drug? What are you talking about? Yeah, it was a lot of cursing and stuff, and he's very disrespectful. I've never been called the N-word so many times in my life, but he's very disrespectful. He blames us for giving his dad embalming fluid, acid, magic mushroom, something that cost him having a normal childhood with his father, because Herman never recovered from that night. He would have lucid moments, but for the most part, according to him, they're in a car riding and go across railroad tracks, Herman would come from the passenger seat over to the middle of the car and start hollering and screaming, get me off the railroad tracks. That's where monsters are. When it got dark at night, he told me about, he took his son to the movies. Now, Herman was never allowed to be alone with his son, because you never know what his mindset will be. So either his mom would be there, the other grandmother, or the child's mother. They took him to the movies one night to see, I know it was a Disney movie. And they got there, it was still light, but when the show was over, it was dark. They had to park kind of toward the end of the parking lot. And as they started getting close to the car, there were shadows around. Herman just took off running back to the front of the theater, where it was well lit, and said, no, just was standing there saying, no. He only lived another 7. I think that boy said he passed away when he was about 7.5. He had a heart attack one night. He said he seen something out his window, and they were at his mom's house. He seen something out his window, and by the time they got from the front room back to Herman's bedroom, he was laid across the bed clutching his chest. But he passed away from a heart attack. So that thing did in fact kill him. She just took a long time doing it. And I can only imagine. I actually started crying when the boy told me that. And then, of course, I'm some kind of punk, old soft simp ass. I'm like, you don't understand, dude. You don't understand what we seen. Y'all didn't see nothing. I'm like, you don't understand what we seen. He's like, I said, so do you know how to get in contact with any other dudes? I lost contact with them. We lost everything in the Hurricane Katrina, and F them too. Because they responsible too, come telling me this crap when I was a kid about what happened to my dad. I'm like, so you haven't talked to them all? He said, I tell you what, I'm going to tell you the same thing I told them. If I ever come to see you, you better have a gun in your hand when I see you. I'm going to take you from your kids like you took my dad from me. I had 3 conversations with him. I tried to stay cool because I know what happened. But when you threatened me like that, I told him, just call me when your plane tires touch down at the airport, and I'll meet you. You'll be going back in a box. I'm trying to tell you the truth, and now you threatening my life. I'm your Huckleberry. Okay, I'm your you don't get to do that, dude. You're allowed to feel however you want to feel. But now you threatening to do something with me. You took my dad from me. And I think it's only right that I should take you from your kids, is what he said. Now, this conversation took place in 2020. I haven't seen him. I ain't going to go looking for him. But I told him, the last thing I said to him was this. If you don't believe in these things, get you some camping equipment and take your hindquarters down to East Texas and camp out for the weekend or maybe even a week. And then tell me what you hear, what you see while you down there. Well, what I'm going to see? There's monsters in East Texas. I'm like, according to what I've heard, there's plenty. But just go down there for a weekend, camp out. And then come back and tell me that these things are make-believe. Yeah, whatever, dude. I don't ever want to talk to him again. I'll pray for him, that God give him peace one day. But Josh, he firmly believes that we gave his dad something, and that's what caused him to be in the condition he was in. I said, well, what drug can you take to make you have a white spot in your hair? Tell me that then, if that's what you believe. I can't explain that. I ain't no doctor. Okay, but you believe that we gave him a drug. Yes. So I do feel bad, but I know that I'm innocent in the allegations that he made against me and them other dudes. So, you know, when you think about what Herman's life was like, nobody should have to, that's not living, that's just existing. When you bouncing back and forth from sheer madness to maybe 60% being normal, and then you got a kid that you were just so, you wanted to be the best dad that you could be, and then you see something that night on them tracks, and you, being a father, it makes me really sad to think to think about that, because I'm like, if our positions had been reversed, that could have been me. And yet I'm still here to tell the tale. And if one of those guys ever sees me on TV or hear me talk about this, if they reach out to me, I'm going to ask them, can I record the conversation? I would really like to know what happened, because I tried to go back to check on Herman. When you know it's a monster in the neighborhood, my grandmother told me a long time ago, if you find yourself in a position and it can cost you your life and you get out of it, don't take your fool ass back. And I never went back. That it factor, I don't want to go back if it's 9 a.m. in the morning, because if you look at it from my point of view that I had at that time, It's a monster. This chick is a monster. You said you stayed 2 blocks away. If that was indeed you on top of them tracks, on top of Herman on them tracks, what's to keep you from being down the street or peeking around somebody's house, just waiting to be like, um, my meal from Chess King, when is it gonna show up? When are you gonna come in and check on her? So no, I never went back to that area, and even my boss was like, she asked me, so if you see her again, if she come in the store or she come to your house, are you gonna ask her if she a monster? I said, I'm not gonna ask her anything. I said, what I'm going to do is this. She gonna take 6 in the chest. I'm gonna reload, and I'm gonna take 6 and try to decapitate her. That's what she gonna get. And her eyes got kind of big, like, you a shooter? Until you can prove to me that that wasn't her on the tracks, if I see her again, in my mind, she's coming back to finish my butt off. I'm gonna drop her like a bad habit, and then I'm gonna take that 357 and I'm gonna try to decapitate her. Because she was like, well, do you have your gun with you? It said, yeah, stuck in the back of my pants. Roy, you can't have your gun in the store. Then fire me. She said, what? I said, then fire me. She's like, no, I'm just saying you can't have your gun in the store. Then fire me. My gun goes wherever I go from this day on. I'm not going to be without it. If I see her, I'm going to figure she's coming back to kill me, and I'm going to try to put her out her misery before that happens. So she didn't fire me, but she told me, have discretion with the gun. And if I pull it on anybody, of course, I'm immediately be fired. So becoming an alcoholic and nightmares. And when it got to the point of where I almost rear-ended somebody one morning on my way to work because I was trying to reach in my gym bag and drive to get my flask out. I wanted to have a drink before I go to work. And I actually had to stand up on the brake not to hit this lady. And then I pulled over and I'm like, dude, you got to get a grip. It's been almost 3 years. She ain't came to get you. And yet you still drinking just as heavy. You drink in the morning, you drink at lunch, and you started drinking when you get off of work. You're not going to find no answers in the bottom of this empty bottle. But you need to get a grip. So I got off work that day. I went home and I poured out everything that had alcohol in it. I did my week of DTs, and I started trying to pull myself out the rabbit hole. Now, I did tell one of my brothers what happened. He said he believed me, but I needed to put it in a place in the back of my head, just never forget it's there. So he taught me how to meditate, and that helped me a great deal. But depending on your encounter or what you choose to believe, seeing these things or having an interaction with them for the people that actually survive and make it back to tell, it changes your life. Some people get curious and they want to know more. Okay, I can learn everything I need to learn about great white sharks. I know that they'll eat the hell out of sea lions, and if you get in the water and they catch you at the wrong time, they'll eat you too. I'm watching extra channels and watch bears do the same thing, and have read or seen some bear attacks on YouTube and a few on TV. I don't think these things are going to let you survive and come back to tell the tale. Not if a physical confrontation is had. Now, there's reports of people shooting them, don't do no damage. So maybe there's a shred of truth about using silver that could come into play later on if somebody chooses to share it. But I was supposed to be a very beautiful chick July 9th at 7:00. And if she showed up, she wasn't looking like she was in the store. Not remotely close. And the only other thing I got to add on that is this. I find it, I want to say hilarious, but it's not, so I won't say hilarious, but I find it very interesting that some people will wholeheartedly believe in skinwalkers. but yet they scoff at the notion of werewolves. When, if you know what a skinwalker is, I'm not going to say they're one and the same, but a physical change takes place for that shaman to put on a pelt or feathers and change into an animal and then back again to a human being. But yet you say, some people, I don't believe in werewolves because the human body can't go through that change. But you believe in skinwalkers. So it's to each his own, but I know what I've seen. I don't believe that was a dogman. I believe that was a werewolf. And that's where I'm sticking. When my daughter got married, she got married in Sholo. And it's beautiful up there. It's up in the mountains. It's actually, they get quite a bit of tourists there. Sedona and Prescott, Arizona get quite a bit of tourist traffic. It's beautiful up there. I mean, the air smells fresher because you're up in the mountains. Well, I was looking at some property because I'm like, I'm getting older. Let me see what, some property, because understand I'm not worried about stuff in the woods because I never seen nothing in the woods. I see mine in the city. So she got married, and the night before her wedding, me, my future son-in-law, and one of his friends went down into town to Walmart to get some more beer. And they went inside, and I was sitting in the car, and I noticed that there were two. Well, I jumped ahead. Let me tell you this. Put it like this instead. I had looked at some property on the what is the name of that county? Cochise County website. You can actually go and find property for sale for back taxes. And I'm like, well, let me go and take a look at this. And I was blown away by the prices for acres, because I was seeing acres of land for $36.14 or $74.76. I'm like, wait a minute, this is per acre? No, because down in Sholo, an acre gonna cost you at least starting at $1,500. But this was 30 miles between Sholo and Concho, Arizona. I'm like, why is this land so cheap? And I was doing research, and I really couldn't find out a lot about it. I'm just like, okay, well, I'm going to try to give me 5-6 acres and, give me a fifth wheel and put it up here, or maybe to build a cabin or something. But yeah, I can, stay up in the mountains. It's going to be my retirement. Well, as I'm waiting on my son-in-law to come out of Walmart, I see this tribal police officers vehicle parked in the parking lot, and they were standing outside talking. So I'm like, well, they live up here. Maybe they can tell me why the land is so cheap. So I got out and I walked over to them, and I'm like, hey, fellas, how y'all doing? And they're like, hey, man, how you doing? I'm like, it's beautiful up here. Y'all live up here, right? He's like, well, yeah, we stay up, closer to Concho. But yeah, it is beautiful up here. Nothing not living in the mountains. Ah, okay. So I got a question for you. He said, yeah, what's that? Now, I'm talking basically to one, but the other one, he's standing right there, he's listening. And he said, oh, what's your question? I'm like, well, and I had the paperwork in the car, and I was like, went on the website to look at property for back taxes, because I'm thinking about purchasing a few acres up here and retiring and just stay up here in the mountains. He's like, oh, yeah, where is that at? And I got the papers out of the car, and we was talking, he was looking at it. And he looked at the other tribal police officer. And then he looked back at me when he showed in the paper. He said, so you been here, looked at this? I said, yeah, we drove up this morning and looked at it. And I'm probably going to look at it again tomorrow after the wedding before we leave. Now, this property I had looked at actually had been measured off and set up with water, a gas pipe, electrical. You just had to dig a trench to have them run it from the pole and the outlets to your property or to your structure. So he said, well, and I looked at him, I'm like, what? He was like, I said, but it's already been marked off and stuff. I'm like, well, what happened? And he's like, well, my grandfather, I'm going to tell you what my grandfather told me. I'm like, okay. He said, back in the 20s and 30s, these investors came and bought all this land up here. I'm like, okay. He said, but none of them were from the United States. He said, yeah, a lot from Japan, Germany, Russia, a lot of European places. I'm like, so no Americans was in on this? He's like, none that my grandfather told me about. He said, but they went and hired a crew to come up and cut down trees, clear some forest, mark off the plots, and set everything up. I'm like, okay. So that's what's up. I'm like, so what happened? He said, well, the crew that they had to come in and do all this work, they had been up here, and he said, I can't remember how long, but the supervisor used to stay either down in Sholo or up in Concho, and then he would show up the next morning. Now, back in these times, a lot of guys were sleeping in tents, or they had those little single pull behind trailers, or they would sleep in their vehicles. I'm like, okay, well, that makes sense. He said, well, supervisor got to the work site one morning and everybody was gone. I said, what? Was the job complete? He said, no, it wasn't completed. They left a lot of stuff. It looked like they left in a hurry. I'm like, oh boy. And I'm thinking maybe forest fire, something like that. And I was like, well, what happened? He said, well, the guy stayed down in Sholo that night and he knew he didn't see any of the workers come down to Sholo. So he drove up to Concho and he actually caught two of the last workmen getting gas. And he asked them, what's going on, man? Why y'all leaving? And the dude told him, you're going to have to find somebody else to do this job. We done. He's like, what happened? He said, for the last couple of nights, and evidently he made mention that he had a discussion with him about that. He said the last couple of nights, something or somebody's been making noises from the woods. And we've been hearing what sound like somebody beating on trees. And, the guy's like, okay, well, it's just some, maybe some of because Concho was actually a reservation. Maybe some of the Indian people up here went out in the woods. They just trying to scare y'all. He was like, not after what happened last night. He was like, what do you mean what happened last night? He said some things came running through the camp. They was trying to turn over trailers. They was damaging the saws, the chainsaws, and a couple of dudes got smacked. He said, we're done. We just, stayed up all night. As soon as it started getting light, he said, you're going to have to find somebody else to do this. So they jumped in their car and they left. Based on what the tribal police officer told me, they haven't been able to find anybody to come up there since then and put in new pipes, lines, whatever, because the property's still up there. Of course, the foresters started taking it all back. But the areas that I looked in, I didn't want to be in the forest itself because of the amount of forest fire we have in Arizona. So I'm thinking get something where there's some opening and I'll just either cut down maybe half an acre of trees myself or have somebody come in and do it. So I looked at him and I was like, so he said some things came running into camp. He's like, yeah. I was like, And he was just looking at me. I said, so you telling me Bigfoot came in and did this? And I wish I had been recording this because the look on his face, his eyes got big and he looked me up and down and I'm like, you thinking because a black man said that to you, that's what surprised you. And he was like, well, I'm just going to say this. If you decide to buy this property, he said, you just need to be able to get along with your other neighbors. I'm like, there's nobody else for at least, 7-10 miles in either direction. That's why I like it. He's like, oh no, there's other people up there. He said, yeah, I'm talking about Bigfoot. He said, they're always around the reservation. They ain't hurt nobody to the best of our knowledge in a long time. But they were here first. And he said, are you planning on having any kind of livestock, any cattle, rabbits? No, I just got my dog. I said, maybe I might get a couple of horses eventually, depending on my grandson get older if he takes any interest. But other than that, no, I'm just gonna have my dog. It's like, well, then as long as you don't do anything, you should be okay. I'm like, what do you mean do anything? He like go out in the woods and start shooting at them or stuff like that. I'm like, as long as they leave me alone, they can do whatever they've been doing. Because I have no, and he said, well, your neighbors is always going to come and check you out. I said, they can stand in the tree line, look all they want. I just don't want them flapping on the house, looking in the windows and not trying to get my grandson. No, dude, I don't. I said, you know what? Never mind. Never mind. I'm good because my grandson was only, I think he was maybe 3 or 4 months in. And I know just by watching him as he's 5 now growing up, when he got to be 2 and 3, we out there in the woods. I'm in the 5th floor. I'm laying down and he gets up before I do. And he goes outside. And one of them things get him. I'm taking everything I own and I'm going in the woods after him, either to recover him or a body. And it's probably going to cost me my life, but that's my grandson. So rather than have to put myself possibly in a situation like that, I said, you know what? I'll just stick to coming up here, going fishing because I don't go camping. But that's what he told me. And he just said it matter of fact, like he said he's had to go on a couple of calls to where Bigfoot was on the res showing up, standing, watching these ladies' kids play. I said, well, what did you do? He's like, what can you do? They didn't do anything. They ain't hurt nobody. They haven't hurt any pets or animals. So I'm like, so y'all just stand there and look? He's like, that's pretty much it. So, but now knowing what I know about Dogman being up there, I have no interest at all living in the mountain. Because it's not a matter of if, it's just a matter of when they gonna show up. So that is, he told me that, and we chatted for, I know my stepson that came out, got in the car, and he's like, what y'all were there talking about? I said, Bigfoot. He's like, oh man, we gonna be here all night. Like, whatever, dude, whatever. But I've talked to quite a few people. Where I was on their show, I've actually turned down more podcasters than I've accepted the invite to be on because I'm an energy guy. And if your energy is not right for me, or if I listen to certain things that you do and I can validate it, now I'm not coming on your show because the cryptid community, there's a lot of egos, backbiting. People act like they can't use common sense to think for themselves, but and this is no reflection on you, but everybody want to be number one. And what they fail to realize is this: the best you can ever be is number 2 because God is number 1 in everything, unless you choose to worship that other fella. So, I'm
well said. Well said.
I just, I've talked to so many people over the last 3 years, and Big Condiff, I appreciate him greatly. I got a lot of respect for him. But I'm going to say this, and I told you this when we had a phone call. Sometimes I wake up blessing him, and some days I wake up cursing him because I'm like, why did you tell them people my freaking name so that TV show would reach out to me? Simply because, as I said, or when I got started, they changed parts of my encounter. But every time they show my episode, my messenger and Facebook blows up with friend requests and, oh man, I just want to tell you what, a good guy you are. And your episode is my favorite. And I'm like, okay. And I appreciate it. I try to respond to everybody. I very seldom get a negative comment or something, but I've talked to a lot of people. And when you hear and see some of the things that have been shared with me behind the scenes, it opened up a whole new world to me when it comes to cryptids. And I walk away quite a bit scratching my head, scratching my chin, and I'm like, I can't give definite answers on this or that, but what I've always done since I've had my encounters, I leave the door in my mind cracked open to it's possible. That's not saying I don't believe it. That's not saying I disbelieve it. It's saying it's possible that this is what it is. And I think a lot more people should do that rather than saying, well, I'm a skeptic until you can prove to me 105% that Dogman and Bigfoot are real. Hold on. It's not my job to prove to you that these things exist. To those that are skeptics and they want somebody else to go out and gather this information and prove it to them, I tell you this. Put that controller down, turn off Call of Duty, come out of your mom's basement, buy you a tent, a sleeping bag, go out in the woods and do your own investigation. Go to some of these spots where, like the LBL or the Appalachian Trail, where people are seeing anything. Gather your own evidence, but don't sit back and say, that's Photoshop. I don't believe it, or I'm a skeptic. If you're a skeptic, gather your own evidence. Therefore, you will not remain skeptical to the existence of these things. But don't make fun of people that sharing stuff. Oh, it's just another blurry picture of Bigfoot. I don't know why they blur it. I have seen some shots where they're crystal clear. Them and Dogmen. So it's, to each his own, but that just kind of irks me a little bit because they say, I'm a skeptic. You're allowed to be whatever you want to. God gave us all free will. But you don't have to be an a-hole when somebody's showing you something because it doesn't meet your picture clarity standards. It's just ridiculous, man. So, as I said before, Vic, he was actually on, this is the way I found out about it. He was actually on another person's podcast, and I was listening to it that night. And the guy asked him, has TV people ever reached out to you for you to come on and do a show with them or something like that? And Vic said, well, yeah, a couple of TV shows have. He said, but the Travel Channel, producer from the Travel Channel reached out to me and asked me if I wanted to be a guest, and I told him no. So he followed up with, well, can you suggest any of your past guests on your show that you could recommend we reach out to? And I heard Vic say this himself, and I think that guy still has that interview up. I'm not sure, but he said the first name that came to mind was Roy Stubblefield. And I'm sitting here like, wait a minute, why are you gonna throw me to the wolves? All the people you done talked to, man. He's like, what he told me just was, it was so incredible that I just think that they should talk to him. And lo and behold, the following week, I get a message on Messenger because he wouldn't give them my phone number. And then I got an email from this guy. So he reached out and he told me who he was and he wanted to have a video chat. So we talked and he was like, well, man, we really be interested in having you on because I listened to your Encounter on Vic show and we just, this is something that people need, that they need to hear this. I'm like, okay, all right, I'll do it. I'm not looking for anything, but if you feel like it's worth having on TV, okay, let's do it. So that show, the producer and the director are actually in Canada. So they hired a film crew here in Arizona, and then they rented this. I guess they didn't know about this studio that they have in Tempe. I think it's $60 an hour, but you can go over there to do your podcast. You can do a lot of stuff over there. It's like $60 an hour. They rented this old warehouse close to downtown and had me meet them down there. And it was hot. It was dusty. It was kind of dark in there. I got all of these artificial lights on me. And I'm like, man, they got me sweating. They put makeup on me. I'm like, well, you got to do my hair too. You're going to put makeup on. You got to do my hair too. Even though my hair was a lot shorter than it is now. But I was just messing with them. And they were on laptops and we were talking. They were asking me questions. I sat down there for 4 hours. And throughout the interview, several times the guy said, can we see your journal? No, you can't. That's not for your eyes. Well, why not? That would be good proof to back up your story. I said, first of all, it's not a story, it's an encounter. Secondly, if you don't believe what I'm telling you and you can't see my physical reaction to when I get to certain parts, maybe I'm not a good candidate for the show. If you choose to, you can give me a lie detector test. if you want to, if you think I'm lying. No, that's not necessary. We just felt that if we could see just parts of your journal where you wrote that down, absolutely not. You can't. No, I said, you know what? Let me see your bank account. Let me see your bank account number. Be like, what that got to do anything? What does my journal have to? This is what I wrote down. What this happened to me. So I guess since I wouldn't share that with them, they made a couple of other, I'm going to say promises, but well, I guess I could say promises because guarantees the same thing. I was supposed to have the say in what the female looked like and the design of the creature. That never happened. And if you watch that episode, you notice they keep the creature so much in the shadows, you really can't see nothing. Now, from when I first saw her, that will be a decent example. And also, they put tufts of hair on the end of the ears. What I seen had no tufts of hair on the end of the ears. But they changed some words that I said, and I didn't find this out until I actually sat down and listened to it because I think they were filming the entire season 3, so they didn't release until they had all those episodes filmed. So I think it was maybe 2 or 3 months later when I seen it, and when I heard them say, take my audio and chop it up to say that I said one of those guys shot her and that's what made her run off, I immediately reached out to him. Nope, that's not what happened. Why'd you take my audio and chop it up like that? I was told. We thought that would make it better for television. And I sat there for a minute and I'm like, expand on that. He said, well, you know, our audience expects certain things when we're filming and when an encounter is being portrayed. I'm like, so you mean to tell me that what I just shared with you for 4 freaking hours was not good enough uncut to make somebody's blood run cold, their hair on the back of their neck stand up, and when I got to the part about urinating, they might not have paused it because they had to take a pee break? Is that what you're telling me? He said, well, yeah. I said, so 4 hours, I get 22 minutes. But the other episode, I noticed got almost 30-something minutes. I said, but you know what? It's okay because that's your show. Do what you do. I'm just letting you know I'm not happy with what you said. And from this point on, if somebody ever asks me about it, I will make sure that I correct them that I didn't say that. And I have enough interviews out there on file where I never said anybody shot it. Okay, we understand. We're sorry you feel that way. Okay, so I did have a conversation with the crew that was there that filmed me. And yes, Josh, they never heard of Dogman. Bigfoot, yeah, but they never heard of Dogman. And the thing that they edited out was this. When I was talking about my encounter, the cameraman and the sound guy, I would cut my eyes and look at him when I was talking. The camera guy was like, what, you could see him like, what the hell? But he was just mouthing. He was, what the hell? And I looked at the guy holding the mic and he was looking at me like, oh, hell no. Hell no. So when I got done filming everything, they came to me and they asked me, dude, that really happened to you? I said, so you mean to tell me you think I'm going to come out here and it's like 102 degrees and sit in this hot ass warehouse to tell a lie? Yes, that's what happened to me. I said, gave them the link to listen to Vic's show. Then I said, listen to it here if you want to hear everything, just as I told it. The camera guy actually sent me a message. He sent me a message and he was like, I don't know what to do with what you shared. I'm like, this is what I want you to do. He said, what's that? I said, just be careful and make sure you're always observant no matter where you're at or you're in the woods or the city. That's what you do with that. I just told people this because this is what happened to me, but I was not in the woods. I was in a neighborhood. And I've heard quite a few encounters since I've been there about these dogmen coming in the neighborhoods. Now, whether they're getting people or they just letting people see them, I don't know. But the intelligence that they have and how black they are. She was so black, it's like she could absorb the light. I mean, it's just otherworldly how black they are. And when they look at you, should you choose to make eye contact, Josh, when I tell you they looking into your soul and beyond, it's not like facing off against a bear or a tiger or a lion or a big dog. This is something that has intelligence working behind them eyes. But when they look at you, I don't know if it's your primordial instinct, knowing and accepting that this thing can kill you real freaking quick. But yet, when you got something looking at you like, I know what scares you. I know how easy it'll be to kill you. And you know to your core, your being, there's nothing you can do to stop it. Unless you got a flamethrower or maybe an elephant gun. And you hitting them with a miniature cannon shell. Then that's going to change the outcome. Now, for you and that one, what about the 3 or 4 that he's running with? That's where the problem going to be. So that was pretty much it. Like I said, I was okay with it. I just seeing yourself sitting on TV for me was, I was just laughing at myself like, you should have did this, you should have did that. But hindsight is second 20. But I just wish they had told my encounter exactly as I shared it, because man, I don't think my heart could stand being that scared again, especially being almost 60. I truly think my heart will stop. Now, I would like to see her again. And I know that's really going to sound strange, under one of 3 conditions. Either I'm sitting in a tank and I got 3 platoons around me in between, and I got a real good pair of binoculars and I'm looking at her from a distance. Or if she's in some kind of enclosure that, whether they guarantee or not that she can't escape, I want to be close enough to an exit so that by the time she get out, I can be on my way. Or if she comes to me and changes in front of me while I got my gun pressed right in her ear. That's how I'd like to see it. And that might sound crazy, but that's the quickest way to the brain. It's through the ear. And that's it. But under other conditions, it was a beautiful specimen of what she was. Just the sheer power. And I'm going to always say it just makes no sense to me that she looked like she had just left from the groomers, man. I mean, her hair was not a place. It wasn't sticking up or spiky or nothing in the way. It just like she had been brushed. They set her down on the edge of them thistles and she came out. And I don't know how far she was back in the thistles before she jumped on the tracks, but you know, people just need to be careful. And I have a not sneaky, but I have a firm belief that some of these people that disappear in the national forest, these trails, and even the cities, these dogmen are getting them. Or maybe they werewolves. There might be a homeless person that's sleeping with 100 other home people that's changing at a certain time and supplementing his diet with some of his fellow homeless people. So I just keep that door, like I said, open in my head to as possible, because until you can prove it's impossible, it should always be possible. I think Sherlock Holmes said it better than I did, but I just gave their bridge version. So that Travel Channels, they did a decent job until they switched stuff up. They said that I ran home. I drove out there. Now, they showed me in the car driving, but they said I ran home. 22, 23 miles, I ran home. Yeah, right. So I just was like, okay, I ain't never ran that far in my freaking life, and I plan on doing it those times soon. But on Vic's show, I started doing some more research about cryptids. I listened to Jeffrey Naldani's channel, and there's a guy on there named Victor that I listened to, and he talks about he used to be a government employee that hunted Bigfoot, Dogman, and I think he hunted a giant too, or tried to get him. But he talked about killing some up under the St. Louis Arch. I found that very interesting. He killed a Dogman under the St. Louis Arch in the city. That was very interesting, and I listened to a few. Well, ever since I was on Vic's show, I decided to start a Facebook group, and this actually be my second one that I started. I got rid of the first one. It just was too much drama. But people started reaching out to me left and right. They heard my encounter, seen me on TV, and they started reaching out. Now, when I'm on TV, boy, I'm not trying to be famous, and I appreciate, like I said, all the kind words that I get. But a lady reached out to me, had seen me on TV, and she decided to reach out to me because she's got some weird stuff going on. And when I say weird, I mean weird. Now,
Oh, the Arkansas lady, yeah.
yeah, I understand. I've talked to, I don't know, I guess I'm going to have to say 273 people this year that have reached out to me on Messenger. And they either got some paranormal stuff going on, Bigfoot, Dogman, UFOs. But when she reached out to me, which was, we're coming up on 2 years now, she asked me if we could talk. I said, sure, we can talk. You know, as long as you stay within certain boundaries, yeah, we can talk. What you got going on? She's like, well, I want to show you something. Now, me and you had a conversation about some individuals saying they want to show you something. And it ain't cryptid related. That's all I was saying.
Yeah.
But I'm like, okay. And I asked her, is this about cryptids? She's like, yes, it is. I'm like, okay, let me see what you got. She sent me these pictures of a Bigfoot and a Dogman and what I believe is a cat person. And I'm like, where'd you get these from? She's like, I took them. Wait a minute, what? She's like, well, I got more. So she sent me some pictures of some UFOs. I'm like, oh, you know, wow, what's you know, you seeing all this stuff? She's like, I've been seeing this stuff for the last 6 years. And there's nobody I can talk to about it other than my kids. So I'm like, okay, well, let me take what you send me and I'm going to run it through some filters. She's like, so you think, I said, no, my vision ain't what it used to be. I'm just running through some filters so I could bring it out more so I could see what I'm seeing. She's like, okay. Since that day, she's shown me some stuff and I've shared some with you behind the scenes just so you can see it that you're not going to find anywhere else. I don't post it in the other, I post a few of them in the other groups, but I'm not part of a whole bunch of groups. But I got some stuff that just, well, she has some stuff that she shared with me. Let me make sure I say that correctly. So she sent me a video. Actually, let me back up. She called me one morning and we were, she was asking me some questions. It wasn't Christian related. She was asking me some questions about how to fix something. And in the middle of the conversation, she said, oh, I'm sorry, I was wrong. She called me one evening, but the first time this happened. And she was asking me about trying to fix something. That was the phone call. And she told her daughter to go out to her vehicle and get her backpack for school. So she's standing in the door watching her daughter. And I was telling her what size tool she was going to need to try to fix. It was something to do with her sink. And in the middle of the conversation, she's like, wait, hold on. And I'm like, well, if you got another phone call, go ahead, because I know her father was supposed to call her. Go ahead and take that and you call him back. She said, no, the police don't get off the phone. I'm like, what's going on? She was like, wait a minute. So she called her other daughter and have her come over. She's like, do you see that? And I'm like, I don't see nothing because we not video chatting. What she said, no, I'm talking to my daughter. I'm like, okay. So I heard her daughter say, down on the corner? She's like, yeah. She's like, is that what I think it is? She's like, that's one of them things. So she called her younger daughter, hurry up, get in here. So I'm like, what's going on? Do you need to call the police or something? She's like, no, you're not going to believe this. I'm like, what? She said, there's a dog man standing down on the corner watching my daughter in the truck. I'm like, right now, as we speaking, she said, yeah. I'm like, let's go to video. So she turned on her camera. I turned mine on and she's showing it, but it's so dark, I couldn't really see what she was trying to say. But she said, it's right there, Roy, by the tree. So I said, get your other phone and video this. She's like, she told her daughter to go get the camcorder. So she did it on the camcorder while I was talking to her. Then I could see what she was saying. And I posted it in the group. I still have to send you the picture in the daytime shot of the tree. But she said that thing was standing on the ground looking at her from this tree. If that's in fact what was going on, we talking about a dog man that's between 12 and 15 feet tall. Then we had another conversation a couple of days later where it was daytime. We were actually video chatting. She was sitting in her driveway in a vehicle. She had just dropped her daughter off at school. And she said that she got a telepathic message from this dog man that said he get ready to show himself. I said, listen, lady. I said, don't be, is that why you called? She's like, no, Roy, that's not why I called you. I'm telling you this because it happened since we've been on the phone. I'm like, so they're going to show themselves to you. I want to see this. We go on video. About 5-6 seconds later, this dog man walks out of the bushes. The only reason I can't share that picture with you is because she made a deal with them that she won't share any pictures that have their babies in it because she wouldn't want her kids being posted on social media. I said, okay, I understand. That's going to come into play a little later on here. So this thing, he's got to be 8 feet long. If she ever gives me permission to share, because I haven't shared with anybody, I'm a man of my word. I do have it though. He's ginormous, but he's not very muscular like the one I seen. He more reminds me of a basketball player. And he's on all fours, but he's got to be 8 feet long from nose to, and this one has a tail. So I'm like, wow. And she's like, I told you. I'm like, I didn't say that you were lying, but we've had many conversations and she shared some stuff with me that unfortunately I can't share. I did share the stuff that I could share with you about the freaky one, where she's sitting in her vehicle and she called me in a panic saying, Roy, tell me what the F this is. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Because she just, she got her camera pointed at the window. And I'm like, okay, that's a window. What's so freaky? She's like, Roy, look in the window. So I'm looking and I'm like, there's nothing there. So she zoomed in and there's a dog man looking out of her window. But it's not inside her house and it's not standing in her front yard. Now, I looked at this and I'm like, wait a minute, this ain't making no sense to me. How? Because you can see the thing, the eyes are glowing. You can see the head move, it blinks. So she has taken and nailed this red blanket up over her window because they used to come into her yard and look in the windows. So she nailed this blanket up and then there's a curtain over that. So you can clearly see that the dog man is not in her house, it's in the window pane. I can't figure that out, though. My only thing is there's got to be a portal there, or that's a demon that has plucked the image from her brain and is presenting itself to her as a dog man because it knows this is what she's dealing with. She sent me 2 or 3 videos where there's multiple in there. And actually in one of them, if you look at the top left, there's a Bigfoot face in there. So I don't know what that weirdness is, but you're not going to see that anywhere else. Those I do have posted in my group. Then, not to mention the light phenomena, I sent you the picture of the little red thing she said was a little girl in a red dress. You can see that ain't no little girl in no red dress. She's got all kind of stuff across all the spectrum. Spirits, cryptids, UFOs, just everything, man. And for some reason, these things are watching her. I sent you the video where she was sitting in her driveway, and there's three of them right across the street watching her. Another one where she's standing in her front yard. They're across the street watching her. I don't know why they're so, if she's been tagged somehow or something, but she's actually moved to another house. And she has shared a picture with me of this Dogman. I did not realize at the time I posted that picture that there was a pup in the picture.
Oh, no.
When I noticed it, I made a comment and then I took it down. Now, some people may say, oh, he's about to take us to La La Land or BS, but I've seen the video. She actually gave me access to her security camera outside her house. I can go in there and look at stuff at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning. I've actually got 3 that she sent me this morning that I have to review. About 48 hours after I shared this video, 3 pit bulls showed up on her property. It's late at night, well in the AM. You can see 2 of them on the camera, and they're looking like they're looking behind the camera because it's mounted in the carport. Less than a minute later, you can hear them breaking into this lady's house, or sound like they breaking in, and they started killing her cats. She called the police and animal control. They show up. One of the dogs is still there. Animal control, for some reason, didn't want to take the dog, talking about it's a stray. Okay, this dog just entered somebody's house and killed their pets. That off the bat right there, that means they got to go. But or maybe the lady was scared of it because it was a pit bull. So the police officer shows up. He does his investigation. He walks around the whole house. And he comes to her and says, I can't find a way that they got into the house. They didn't go through the bottom pane on the door. They didn't go through the screen door. He said, there's only a few scratches on here, but the door is intact. Now, you got to open up your screen door and then open up the door to get into, because she had them, they were in the back part of the house, which is enclosed. Yeah, but you got to open up, I think she said 2 doors to get in there. He said, I'm not finding any way they broke into the house. It's almost like somebody let these dogs into the house. Now, you can hear them when they get into the house, the carnage that they cause. And she was really, really she was feeling bad about that, because you can hear these cats getting killed. And then you actually see a couple of them come running out and they haul tail off the camera. So if these things knew, because she did notify me and tell me, oh, Roy, you got to take that picture down. That's got a baby in it. I took it down. But 48 hours later, 3 dogs break into your house and kill your cat. But the police officer says he can't find no way they got into the house. It's like somebody opened the door and let them in. And then to see the dogs looking behind the camera, man, I was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry, E. I'm so sorry. I forgot, or I didn't mean to share this picture. And she's like, it's okay. I said, no, it's not okay, because that means somebody or something let these in your house. So all I can say is my mind, with what I'm learning from what she's sharing with me, I don't know if her soul has bonus points attached to it. Like, a preacher, minister. I ain't gonna say the president. I just say the president, but I believe that some people have certain abilities that if a demon, I'm gonna say that, can get them, then their soul comes with bonus points. or they may get a higher ranking level than where they are right now because they have managed to get this. So I don't know if that's the case with her, but I hope it's okay to do this. The only reason I'm saying the name of my group is because some of the stuff I'm talking about is posted there and you're not going to find it in another group, but it's called Cryptid Insights. I will be posting some more stuff this weekend that's new. I sent you that picture of that orange-coated dog, man, and I'm thinking that might be a fox person. I can't prove it. It might just be a different colored dog, man, but she's got some really amazing stuff that she shared. And with everything that I've learned since 2020 about cryptids, I actually got a couple of pictures of UFOs standing in my backyard, believe it or not. I wasn't expecting that. I have had to deal with a demon. We talked about that in 2021. Wasn't expecting that, but
that one was wild. That's wild.
It's just, and I think I have to look at the picture more, but I'll send it to you. You tell me what you see in there, because there's a picture of something standing on the other side of my wall in broad daylight, and I know it's not a part of the tree, but it's just standing there. So I'll send it to you. You can let me know what you think. But this world we live in, everyone. When you think that you're just go to work, go shopping, go on vacation, and then you go home and you safe. That may be the case for 85% of us, but for the other 15%, it's weird, it's dangerous, and it could be scary, all depending on where you live. So when you hear somebody share their encounter, of course, God gave you free will to believe what you want to and what you disbelieve, but just crack that door open in your brain too is possible. You're not admitting that is true or that is not true, but you're just saying it's possible that it could be. Here in Arizona, they used to have a big problem with the homeless people in downtown Phoenix. It actually got so bad that the city made them come in. Well, the store owners and business owners downtown made them come in. Well, they told them. They actually came and they moved the homeless to an encampment, same way they did in California. Well, I had listened to this other podcast, and this guy was talking about in California that there are some police department there that actually will pick the homeless people up and drop them off in this area because dogmen are actually eating the homeless people there. And I'm like, what? No way. Then I heard this other guy in Texas say pretty much the same thing. I'm like, oh, hell no. And then I got to thinking, well, I heard on Jeffrey's show that Victor said there's a werewolf that they have tagged that's coming down into downtown Phoenix. And I sat here. Actually, I was at work when I heard that, so I went and got in the car when I listened to it. And I was looking around. I ain't gonna lie. I'm like, wait a minute, what? So I got a wild hair and decided, let me go down here and talk to some of these homeless people just to see what I can find out. It's daytime. I should be okay. Well, a lot of them wouldn't talk to me because they figured I was some social service or I was an undercover police officer until I ran across this guy. And all I did was ask him, has he noticed that some of the people that he hang out with, he ain't seeing anymore? And he's like, no, that ain't the case. And I said, well, can I show you something? And I showed him a couple of pictures of Dogman. And his eyes kind of got big. He said, wait a minute, I know somebody you could talk to. So he took me and introduced me to this lady. And she was like, you know what? We need to go and have him talk. I think the guy's name was Edward. I have to look, I wrote it down. But they took me to this other guy. We had to walk like 1.5 miles to find this dude because, like I said, there's a lot of homeless people out here, and the numbers grow every year. So we find this dude. He was hanging out with these other guys. They was actually working in shifts to go out and hold the sign by the road to ask for money or food. So I'm talking to this guy, and he tells me that they were used to sleep in this urban park that I go fishing at. Phoenix has all these urban lakes with ponds in them that you can fish at. He said they used to stay there. Then there's a golf course that's on one side of it. So he said one night, him and his guy, had bedded down for the night. They had been talking about what area they're gonna work and how we gonna get something to eat in the morning. Just general how to survive question. And he went to sleep, and he said he got woke up because the guy got snatched out from under their tarp. He said he got snatched by something, and by the time he got out and was able to look up, this thing was running across the golf course holding the dude. He said it had his neck in his mouth, but he was carrying it like a baby, or you would carry a woman across the threshold when you just got married. And I looked at him, and I'm looking at him for signs of you lying. I ain't gonna lie, I was looking at for signs of that. I didn't call him that. I just looked at him, and he had this look on his face. Now, if you've been on the sun for more than a certain amount of time, at least here you get that weathered look to your skin where you're brown. You could tell the blood had drained from his face when he was telling me. And he said, I don't go back to that park anymore, day or night. But he described what I took as a werewolf or a dogman. But it ran the way it was running, it would take it back to the canal. You can go up and down the canals through the city here at night, and unless somebody's on there fishing or you standing by the wall, because a lot of them had concrete walls, and looking over the wall and your dogs alert you, you can travel them down these canals all through the city. So when he told me that, I'm like, how long ago was this? And he's like, that had to be late 2021, 2022. Early 2022, like January, February. I just looked at him. I said, okay, sir, thanks for your time. He said, well, man, do you have any spare change? Can I have a couple of cigarettes before you go? I said, you can have the rest of the pack. And I think I gave him $3 or $4. That's all I had. But I'm like, thank you for your time. He's like, you're not going to tell anybody I told you this, are you? I'm like, yeah, I'm going to tell everybody that can listen. He's like, what? I'm like, I'm going to tell everybody that can listen. I'm like, can I come back down here and talk to you? But until that happens, can you talk to anybody else that could tell me about any more homeless people that are coming up missing? I just want to know. He said, when are you coming back? I'm like, I don't know. But if you're still here, I'll look for you, or I'll put the word out, and I'll see if I can find you. So if what he told me is true, because the lady swears that she was in the park too, but by the time she got out of where she was sleeping at and got over there, the thing was long gone. But she said that he was scared, and I'm like, I won't tell to say that they're lying, but I do know that there are a lot of people that are homeless that are supposed to be on medications. But when I showed him that picture, his eyes just got big, and I just said, can I show you something? I never said, have you seen anything like this? I said, can I show you something? And he said, this is what looks like ran off with his friend. So guess what? These freaking things, if what he's saying they hear in Arizona, Josh, and guess what? With all the accounts I've heard, they all over. I only got one spot left I can move to where I ain't gonna see one. That's a why.
They're there too. I'm pretty sure.
Oh, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot.
Okay, actually, I'm gonna insert this. So my writer, he actually haven't looked at it yet, but we have a whole script for another episode. It's all based on Hawaiian cryptids. So I don't know what's in there. I've got to check, but it might be out by the time this comes out. I don't know. But maybe I'll send it over to you as like a first look. Like, hey, just check it out. Anything in there you don't want to know about? But yeah, there's nowhere that's untouched, man. There's really above, below, and around. It's everywhere. You think you go to certain spots, the ocean, the desert, the mountains, the woods, inside how there. I hear stories with things. It makes me realize, this doesn't make me realize, but you kind of like start to realize like you're dealing with something that supersedes our matrix of existence. Like that whatever these are, not just a werewolf or a Bigfoot or that whatever we're dealing with, because we're dealing with an umbrella phenomenon that this is able to come in and out of our space. And in fact, one of the best analogies that I've recently been able to tell people about, because that's such a hard thing to wrap your mind around. It's so like how is that possible? Like, well,
right.
Think about a 2D plane. There's actually a YouTuber. I think she's a physicist. She's really intelligent. Her name is Tibby. I believe Tibee, and I think she's Australian. And she did a great job of breaking down like fourth dimension and what that looks like. And she's like, okay, imagine that you're you, and you're looking at a 2D plane. Okay. And let's say you have a couple people in that 2D plane, and one of those people has a safe. Now, us being us, we could look down at that 2D plane. You could see beginning, you could see the end, you could see distance, but they can't see you. They have no idea you exist. Not only that, but you could manipulate and alter anything within their existence without them ever knowing. Inside the little safe that this lady had drawn, I think there's like a diamond in it. She's like, I could take this diamond out and manipulate whatever I want without her ever knowing that I even exist. And you kind of like think, you can take it at face value, but you kind of like start to think, you're like, oh my gosh, like that makes sense. Whatever's in the higher density, they do that to us. They could see beginning, and that they can know what's going to happen to you 6 months down the road because they could see your timeline. That sounds so like crazy to think about, but they could just, it's so hard to wrap your mind around. But I'm like, if that's the case, which it probably is, a lot of things point to that, then we'll never be able to see because we can't see that. Anyway, just food for thought. Just food for thought.
I was just on another podcast last week. Guess where the hosts live at?
Where?
She lives in Hawaii. So we actually, she was telling me about some things, but yeah, if you can share that with me, share it, and I'll run it by her because she lives there. I think she's from Hawaii actually too, but we talked about one. I can't remember the name of it, but it's supposed to be like a shark-like cryptid, but it's the mouth is on his back. It can come to you like a human being and lure you away from a crowd of people, and that's when it'll metamorph, I guess, into. But the mouth is supposed to be on the back, but it's like a shark.
No thanks.
Sometimes shark cryptid. So yeah, that's the same thing I said. But she told me something about the reason there's no trees on a certain areas because there was a Bigfoot-like creature that was causing problems, and the people went up there and killed it and cut his head off, and he came back to life, and he tore up all the trees because he's looking for his head.
Whoa. So
yeah, they got their own fair share of stuff, but
that's
yeah,
wild,
man. This world we live in is, I mean, going back to the werewolf thing, think of it like this. People say that they can't see the human body going through the change. Yet, caterpillar starts out as a caterpillar, goes into a chrysalis, and comes out a butterfly or a moth. That's a physical change. Now, I understand I'm talking about an insect, or just like we was talking, I told you about there are certain frogs in certain areas, all of them will be female, and some of them will actually change their gender in order to procreate to keep the species going. People, if you don't know everything about everything, especially when a new species is being discovered every day, they just discovered a new type of tarantula, and it's a gorgeous creature, but if I ever see it, he getting 2 cans of raid. Period. I don't do spiders.
Have you ever heard of the giant Congolese spider called like the Kobe Fa? I'm probably butchering the name. I'll insert the real name in the episode. I don't remember what it's called, but supposedly it's this giant Congolese. Well, when I say giant, I don't mean like the size of a car, but yeah, like this big.
A rock size. Yeah,
I think so. But the Congo it's like this deep, unexplored area of the world anyway. And so anyway, I guess there's like some villages there. They're like aware of it, but these things like will eat full grown deer and like they lay their webbing. I want to say they're a kind of funnel spider, if I'm remembering correctly, because they'll lay that they're like webbing on the ground and they trap prey. But I mean, I heard that they're basically like these large hairy brown spiders. And so, and like you just said, man, it's like there's so many things we don't know. I just blows me away.
I hope everybody stays safe. I hope you enjoy what I had to share. You can take it however you choose. It don't cost me nothing. I ain't trying to be famous. If one person listened to this and it saved their life, then it's worth it. But understand these things, they not just in the woods. They not just out in the desert. They are in cities too. And it might be your neighbor. Might be the police officer pulled you over and told you you're going to get a speeding ticket when you know you wasn't speeding. just take it with, it's possible that werewolves exist. We know dogmen do, but yet we don't know everything that they can do. We know Bigfoot comes in several different varieties. When you think about the Gugwe or what's that other one? The Yetis. So just be safe for everybody and understand that when you have an encounter, should you do it, you brand it. You ain't gonna never forget it ever. And hopefully you'll be like me and be able to survive it and just reach out to Josh and share what happened to you because people need to know more and more encounters are coming out. I don't know if it's because they're breeding and these young now need territories of their own or because when they cut down these forests to build these subdivisions, that's not pushing these creatures out. You just push them a little bit deeper, but when they get dark, they coming back to their area because it was their area at first. So just be safe. Watch your kids, and should you hear something that don't sound right, should you choose to, turn your head, look, identify what it is before you run. That's all I'm gonna say, because I never want to hear another encounter other than mine about somebody that ended up like Herman.